All right, folks. Hey. Happy Sunday. My bad. I was trying to make sure I actually had everything where it needed to be so I did not have to get up and go grab tea or anything else. Everything I need is in my corner. Can you guys hear me? First of all, I want to make sure my sound is working. We got a lot to cover. I hate that it's such a heavy topic or set of topics, but we'll work through it. Yeah, somebody give me a heads up and let me know that you can hear me. And I want to just make sure this mic is set the right way. Let's make sure that's set up right. There we go. Okay. All right. Y'all can hear me. You can hear me. Perfect. Okay. Anyway, let me get a few what's ups in real quick. What up, Lexi192? Thank you for letting me know you could hear. Tay Q Kindle. What up? Let me adjust this here. I don't like how this is set up. Okay, I'm trying to like get this shot. The camera's here, but the laptop is always here. Let's see. Hey, Calvin, did you get a chance to view my comment on your Carly Russell video a month ago? I commented about 2 weeks ago. Freddie, I would have to actually go back and look, but I will go back and see what the comments said. What up, Deanna Penna? Greetings, Calvin, YouTubers. So happy to hear from you today. Absolutely love your commentary. Let's go. Thank you so much. What up? What up, the homeless advocate? Tia Moreland, if I'm skipping you, please don't take offense. I'm just scrolling to get to the bottom because we have a lot to cover. What up, Poison Ivy? I agree. I did not. Well, I'm not going to say I didn't expect us to deal with the same kind of nonsense, but yeah. Let's see. What up, Montrez Jones? Course correction. Andrea Brown. Kirk Torian. What up? Dina Newton. Jewel. Cherish the Soul Entertainment Podcast. JK12. What up? All right. Happy is, well, I guess the weekend is technically over now, but I had somewhat of an okay weekend before we started getting all this terrible news, right? All right, anyway, before we jump into all the heavy stuff, let me jump into some story time real quick, just to ease into the other stuff. So you guys know how I recently got a new couch in the back, right? So if you remember, I used to have like the brown one that was, it was like a brown sectional. So when I got the brown sectional, when I got the blue couch in the back, I ended up keeping the brown couch and I just put it in my bedroom. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep it in like the bedroom. Yeah, that's gonna work, right? But then I was feeling like, okay, because I actually have a pretty big like bedroom, but I was like, yeah, I don't like how I got too much going on in here. So I was like, it's time to just let the chair go. It's okay. I love that couch to death, but it's been like 7-8 years. It's okay to let it go. So I went ahead and I could be that friend that gets on their other friends' nerves and calls everybody to say, hey, we're about to move some furniture. But no, I said, no, I'm going to be a real adult and just pay some movers to get it. Because initially when they brought this couch over, I had asked the people like, hey, y'all think y'all can just go ahead and take this, this sectional on downstairs too? They're like, no, we don't. That's liability. All right, fine, whatever. So I was like, well, fine. Actually, I like this couch. I just put it in my bedroom. So anyway, I find this company because I'm gonna find a company that's just gonna come and pick up the couch and be on their merry way, right? And so I find this company, right? Got a few decent ratings. I'm like, okay, and again, it's just moving a couch. It possibly can't be anything too chaotic, right? And so the website just asks you to pretty much take a picture of whatever furniture you want moved and just write a description. So it was a sectional, so I broke it in two parts when I put it in my room. Like I had one part on one wall, one part on another wall. So I took a picture of both parts. Like, hey, it's a sectional, it's two part. This is the big part, this is the smaller part. I just need it, do whatever y'all want with it. Just take it, please, right? And so everything's locked in, and it's only gonna be like $100. So I was like, perfect, all right, that works. And so we get to the day of, right? And I think the guy was supposed to come, or the people were supposed to come at like 9 o'clock. They ain't show up till about 11:30. They said traffic was bad. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give y'all a pass because traffic in the area can suck sometimes, but this is a random Thursday. This is not even one of the traffic days this early, but all right. And so we get there, and like, mind you, at this point, because they didn't came so late, like the loading dock is closed. So I'm already mapping this out like, dang, now we're gonna have to carry this couch, or they gonna have to carry the couch all through the building and all through the lobby and everything. We don't got the freight elevator no more. Somebody's gonna be coming in there trying to walk their dog, and the folks gonna be trying to put the couch in the elevator, but so be it. Anyway, so They show up, right? And I knew it was about to be a mess when I saw only one person come. And I'm looking like, oh, well, they must have some new tricks or something. One person, I guess they do this all the time. So maybe he got some kind of gadget and they about to get it cranking, right? And so he's like, he comes, mind you, he don't even got like the big truck either that you roll it into. He just got like a pickup truck. I'm like, dang, he gonna have to lift the piece and put it in the truck too. He must have some good gadgets, some good equipment. Nothing of the sort, y'all. Nothing, right? And so he gets to the apartment and he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. So it's 2 pieces? I was like, yeah, that's what I submitted on the website. There's even a picture with 2 pieces, right? And he's like, oh, man, I thought you just took it from 2 different angles and moved it around so we could see what it looked like. I said, yeah, well, gee, if I could do that, I could just go ahead and move the couch on downstairs myself, right? I'm like, no, it's 2 separate pieces. He's like, oh, man, I think I might have to charge you for that. So I just let him sit on that. I was like, we'll get to that in a minute. Like, I ain't even about to stress. It's too early for this. Let's just move the couch. So I'm thinking, like, there's going to be some more people coming out the truck. And there's nobody else coming out the truck. It's just him. And then he was like, oh, you got one of them, like, them rolling crates that we can, like, put the couch on. First of all, I heard we. I'm like, we? What's all this we stuff? I didn't pay. We? And you ain't got no, he didn't have nothing to roll the couch with. He just vibes and good energy. He ain't came with no equipment. Just drove here. I was like, come on. So, long story short, he gets in there. He's like, yeah, I feel like we'll be able to just carry it and push it on down the hall. And I'm getting annoyed because it's like, you're already like 2.5 hours late. You done came by yourself. I'm not knocking your business, but damn, if I needed to move the furniture, I would have just did it myself. I've clearly paid you and whatever company that you have represented yourself with to come and move this stuff. Tell me why. The 2 of us, because it was, man, and I was in my house shoes. Like, I was not even in the right, like, it was like house shoes and basketball shorts and like a tank top, just house clothes. I thought they'd be in and out in 10 minutes. I could finish, doing my little coffee and stuff and watch my little shows and maybe take a nap because it was one of the days when I work from home. And so here I am. Now I got to put on some real shoes. We're trying to move this couch. Fortunately, the couch is not heavy, but it's big, right? And I was trying to tell him, like, we probably need to take the legs off the couch because I don't think the couch and the legs are going to fit through the door. No, man, I do this all the time. And I'm looking like, well, yeah, you got it. It's your world. I'm just living in it. So I'm watching him try to move this couch because I got tired of trying to help. So I was like, he got it because his attitude was killing me softly. So I let him try to move the couch. Of course, he can't move the couch all the way through the door because the legs are too big. So I was like, yeah, I think we need to take the legs off the couch. So now we twisted and taking the legs off the couch. Mind you, he done scratched up the, man, when I tell you the walls by the door got so scratched up with him pushing and shoving. So anyway, we finally get the couch out the door. The couch is long, so it can barely get in the hallway. We've had to maneuver and twist this couch so many ways. And I'm annoyed too, thinking like, yeah, you really about to get exactly this $100, thinking you're going to up the price because it's 2 pieces. We move this couch down the hall. Again, there's no rolly thing to move it with. So we got to carry it all the way down. And my building is like a really, like it's a big building. Like it's like one hallway goes like, I don't know, 100 feet this way. Then you take another turn and there's another 100 feet. Then you take another turn. There's like another 60 feet. And then there's one more turn before you get to the elevators, right? And so we had to do all of that. At this point, you're like sweating and everything. It's hot. Elevators are slow. Then we can't get it in the regular elevator because it's not the freight elevator. And so we somehow figured out how to get it in the elevator. It took us about 5 minutes, right? I was doing my part. It wasn't me. It was him. Because I'm like, you're supposed to already know this. This is your forte, right? I'm just supposed to like pay you the money and sit and enjoy my day. So we get the first part down. Now we get down however many floors we got to go down. Now we're in the lobby. Now we got to carry this couch all through the lobby and out the side door because we can't get to the loading dock anymore because another family is using it as they're moving out, right? And so carry this big old couch through the lobby. And like we get it to the side door, we get to the truck, and like I said, he just has a pickup truck. Now we got to lift the couch and put it in the truck, but he got other stuff in the truck because he's done other deliveries and stuff before. So now he's like, yeah, if you can just help me like rearrange some of this stuff in the truck. I'm like, God damn, man, what the And I'm trying to help him out too because I felt bad that he was by himself. I don't know if there was another person and they got in a fight on the way there and it was just him by himself or what, but man, we maneuver all this stuff. And mind you, in the truck, there was like a bookshelf, a lamp, all kind of stuff. I'm like, yo. All right. So we get the first part of the sectional in the truck. Now we got to go back upstairs and do it all over again. So we go and do it all over again. Only this time, it's the bigger part of the sectional we're moving. So again, we move the legs. It takes even longer to get it out of the door and into the hallway because it's longer. Like, man, it took us like an hour and 10 minutes to move these 2 little pieces of couch. I was so pissed off. I was so annoyed, man. And then, like, when we finally got it into the second truck, because I mean, we're like lifting it over the truck, because this truck, when you open it out the backside, there's not like a ramp or nothing to slide it up under. Like, I had to climb in the truck and get down and help pull it up while he's pushing it up. I'm just like, man. So then I told him, look, I ain't paying you no $200. You're gonna get exactly what the estimate was, because that was on y'all. So he's like, okay, cool. But he's like, I only take Zelle. So you got Zelle? I'm like, damn, all right, let me open up Zelle. Thank God I used that. But man, I was so annoyed. Anyway, this is like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I get a phone call. Or yeah, it was a phone call, but I didn't answer it. So then I get a text message. Hey, you think you can give me a rating on my business? This is so and so from the movie company. I was like, you know what? I want you to thrive, so I'm not going to give you the rating I want to give. So I'm gonna just be quiet and mind my business. Because if I say what I think, you're gonna be out of business. Like, I was so done. Like, man, I really be trying to help folks, but what? Like, fortunately, I'm in the right shape to do that kind of work. What if I was somebody that couldn't physically move a couch? Like, what if I was somebody that had like a condition or something? Like, what were you going to do then? Right? Because he had an attitude at first. Like, when he realized we didn't have the rolling, thing that you put the furniture on, the rolling crate. I'm like, you're supposed to have that. You the moving company. Like, bro. Anyway, I'm too nice. I give people so much grace. And the thing was, he was like really young too. My guess he's like 22, 23. So, I'm trying to help him get his weight up, but dang, man, I was annoyed. By the time we finished, I was like, let me just go ahead and just do some other stuff. Like, coffee was canceled. I forget whatever show I was watching. Just get to the mess. Like, Lord, 1-star service indeed. Do better. So I'm not even gonna tell y'all what the company is, because I don't want y'all going over there giving them no bad reviews. Hopefully that'll be a lesson learned, because I nicely told him, like, bro, next time, like, thoroughness, okay? Like, I took pictures of what was there and described what I needed the service for. A sectional, 2 pieces. Here's picture 1 here. Here's picture 2. All right. At least show up with 2 people, man. It's all right. Anyway, too much. Rent is already too high for this nonsense anyway. Lord. All right. We're about to shift gears here. I just had to start off with a happy story since we're about to get real dark for a minute. Let me see. Poison Ivy said, I've been binging on the podcast. The way you mock your mother, snickering and giggling. It's funny. Yeah, I can't wait to put the next episode out. It's supposed to come out this upcoming weekend. Let's see. Greetings from Brooklyn. Oh, no, I have my tea right here. Somebody said no tea. No, my tea is right here. It's ready. I had it ready. But I'll be trying to do coffee in the morning sometimes just to get my energy up a little bit. Somebody was telling me I need to try, like, it's like a mushroom type of coffee thing. Somebody was saying try that. Like, that's a bit better, but we'll see. It better not be nasty if I try it. All right. We're going to switch gears here. I'm going to read about 3 more comments, and we're going to keep it going. Right. Let's see. What up, Raywin? By the way, it was Raywin's birthday the other day, so y'all make sure y'all say happy birthday to Raywin. He turned 51. Greetings. Thank you, Deneen Grant. My point. Calvin did 50% of the work, so homeboy would have gotten $50. I was nice to let him get that 100. And then, there was an option for tip on there. And like when you go somewhere and the register gives you that option to, if you want to tip or not, and then the cashier be standing right there looking at you. And it's like a life or death decision. Like, all right. Ugh, so funny. I swear it's just the most random things always happen to me. Like, I don't even think I'm a funny person. I just think my response and how I interpret things is what makes people laugh. But really, I just swear I just always end up in these chaotic moments where something crazy always happens every time. And I don't even be trying. Like, man, had me all broke up and sore the next day. Like, man. All right, anyway, let us jump into it. All right, so a few other things too. Book club session is tomorrow, 9 p.m. If you check on my community tab, the link for the Zoom is right there. We are reading The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. Chapters 1 through 3 is the portion that we're going to cover. You can find the book in a whole bunch of different outlets. Some people like to use Audible if they don't want to get the physical copy. And like I said, that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern. The Zoom link is already on the community tab. Like I said, all you got to do is click the link and participate. If you don't want to participate, but you just want to sit in and listen, you're welcome to do that as well. We'll always have some really good discussions. By the way, anytime at least with this one, the 4 choices that were given for the book club selection were ones that you all recommended. Because some of y'all were letting me have it in the comments, like, why did you pick that book? I was like, this is what y'all said to choose, and I'll let y'all vote on it. I was listening to y'all. I wanted to do another music book, but that's fine. So yeah, that'll be on Monday. Is there anything else? Those are all the main things. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, I need to sit before we start this. Lord, give me the strength. Oh, the strings all over. Y'all saw that, right? Stupid teabag. All right. So, Jacksonville. I'm going to start with some of the pieces from the article I want to read, and then we're going to jump right into conversation, right? Sad day, sad day. All right. So, Jacksonville. The white gunman who killed 3 black people in a racially motivated attack at the Dollar General store in Jackson, Florida on Saturday legally purchased the firearms he used in the shooting earlier this year, Jackson Sheriff T.K. Waters said in a news conference Sunday. The gunman, identified as 21-year-old Ryan Christopher Paul Meter, bought the handgun in April and an AR-15 style rifle in June, the sheriff said. He lived with his parents in nearby Orange Park and had no criminal arrest history, although he had been temporarily and voluntarily held under the Baker Act of 2017, the sheriff said. In the situation, there was nothing illegal about him owning firearms. The news conference came a day after Paul Meter fatally shot 3 black people at the Dollar General store, in what authorities say was an anti-black hate crime. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the Justice Department is investigating the shooting as a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violence and extremism. The gunman used racial slurs, left behind a racist creed, and drew swastikas on his firearm, authorities said. He was armed with AR-15 style and a handgun and was wearing a tactical vest and blue latex gloves. The victims were identified as Angela Michelle Carr, 52, Anolt Joseph A.J. Laguerre Jr., 19, and Gerald Gallion, 29. Sabrina Rosier, a relative of Gallion, described him as fun-loving young man. He left behind a 4-year-old daughter. It's hurtful. I thought racism was behind us, and evidently it's not, she said Sunday at a vigil for the victims. Prior to the shooting, the gunman had turned away from the campus of a nearby historically black university, Edward Waters University. There, he refused to identify himself to an on-campus security officer and was asked to leave, the university stated in a news release. The individual returned to their car and left campus without incident. The encounter was reported to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office by EWU Security, the school said. The shooting came 5 years to the day of a mass shooting in downtown Jacksonville at a Madden video game tournament. The attack also coincided with the commemoration of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, the iconic civil rights demonstration that called on the government to better protect the rights of black people. The attack was one of several shootings reported in the U.S. over 2 days, including one near a parade in Massachusetts and another at a high school football game in Oklahoma. The shooter left his home in Clay County around 11:39 a.m. and headed to Jacksonville in neighboring Duval County. At 12:48 p.m., the suspect headed to Newtown, a predominantly black area of Jacksonville, and stopped at Edward Waters University in a gray Honda, donning a bulletproof vest. The sheriff said a TikTok video was also taken around this time showing him getting dressed. University police backed into a parking spot in the same lot as the suspect, and the suspect left at 12:57 p.m. The sheriff said University police followed him out of the lot and flagged down a sheriff's officer saying there was a suspicious person on campus. At 1:08 p.m., at Dollar General parking lot, the gunman shot into a black Kia and killed Carr, the sheriff said. He then entered the store and fatally shot Laguerre. I think I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I'm saying the last name wrong. The sheriff said. Others fled out the rear exits of the store, and the suspect exited the same door before returning inside. The gunman then fatally shot Gallion, who had just walked into the store, and chased after and shot at Gallion's fleeing girlfriend, the sheriff said. At 1:18 p.m., the gunman texted his father and told him to go into his room, where the father found a will and a suicide note. A will. You are 21. You ain't got nothing. The sheriff said officers entered the store a minute later, 11 minutes from the start of the shooting, and heard one gunshot, which is presumed to be when the gunman shot and killed himself, the sheriff said. The suspect's father called Clay County Sheriff's at 1:53, the sheriff said. The attack clearly targeted black people, Waters said. The suspect used racial slurs and left behind writings to his parents, the media, and federal agents outlining his disgusting ideology of hate, the sheriff told reporters. This shooting was racially motivated, and he hated black people, Walters said on Saturday. All right, I'm going to stop there. There's a bit more in there, but at this point, we get the ideas of what's happened, right? Also in the manifesto, there was specifically a line that specifically said he wanted to kill all N-words. So at this point, there's no question that, yes, this is all centered around the conversation of race. Sometimes when these moments happen, people like to play around and try to act like, oh, it's an isolated incident, or they'll jump in and pull the mental health card. This was all 100% intentionally, executed, right, in regard to the anti-black hatred this person had in their heart. But the thing that I've said, and I've said this too, because I said this before on the video in response to the Buffalo grocery store shooting. Like, when I tell you that I, again, am tired of black people being collateral to the punitive entitlement of white folks. Like, when I tell you, like, So you have this kid, or not even kid, you have this guy, Ryan Christopher Palmeter, right? And the thing that gets me is he's 21, right? 21. And you have that much hatred in your heart already, to the point where not only are you willing to kill, but you're ready to take your own life, right? Like, how disturbed do you have to be at that young of an age to already be like, in that space? And I think it goes back to one of the conversations people have always had, where they always used to say, oh, well, racism is going to die out with the older people that were, from the Jim Crow era. And I always tell people, like, nah, because the way that racism is set up in the United States, it's been embedded. It is institutionalized and it's normalized in this country. It's just the way that things have always been. Because when you really look at a lot of these shootings, look at the pattern, right? The Charleston 9 shooter was what, 21? All right. The Buffalo mass shooter, 18. These are young men, young white men, mad at the world, right? And so again, that whole idea of thinking that just because people are under a certain age, they all of a sudden no longer, have racist ideologies or thoughts. Oh no, this is all homegrown. They're learning this at home. They're learning this in the environments that they're in. And again, it's still institutionalized in our politics. It's institutionalized in everything. And so you have to look at the world that we are currently living in, right? On one parallel, because again, going back to the question of how does a 21-year-old get to that state of mind, where they're willing to go and just shoot some random innocent bystanders minding their business because they're pissed off at the world, right? On one parallel, you're watching them strip away and pretty much attack all elements that challenge American history, right? Pretty much, and they identify it as woke. So any kind of conversation that challenges the status quo, any kind of effort to actually teach history, to bring, enlightenment to society in regards to what has been done wrong in the past and what we could do better in the future, any kind of work around that is being challenged and attacked and seen ripped institutionally, right? And it's being cemented. It's happening in all the states. It's happening in our schools. It's happening in our politics. So that's one side of the parallel. Then on the other side, you have a lot of people who are in positions of power or they carry influence. And again, they're still feeding into the narrative that white people are under attack, right? They keep feeding into this narrative that it is so hard to be white in America. And they have taken this and they have run with it. And somehow being challenged for having racist ideology somehow makes it hard to be white. And I'm just like, okay. Meanwhile, while it's so hard to be white in America, we're watching any element of progress. And really, a lot of that progress was already breadcrumb policy to begin with. You're watching any and all elements of progress be stripped away, chipped away, programs cut, education being compromised, right? All kind of lawsuits. Edward Blum, who I'm going to get to later on, who's finding anything in relation to Black folks that he got a problem with it, he's going to take it to the courts, right? We've seen the nonsense that just continues to circulate. And a lot of it is always rooted in anti-Blackness. However, somehow, because again, when we talk about white America, collectively, white Americans center themselves in everything, whether it's structural or systemic, they will still make it about themselves and make it about their feelings and make everyone else collateral when their feelings have been hurt. And that's what we're dealing with, right? And so look at how intentional all of this is, right? So as we said, you've watched all of these little elements of progress be chipped away in regards to progress for Black Americans, whether, again, education, or even what we saw with the Farm Bill and how that has yet to be distributed. It's been challenged so many times in court. But the intentionality of Edward, right? Where does he decide to go? Jacksonville's a pretty big city, right? Right? He goes, what, to the Black side of town. He says he's going to go to that side of town. But then in addition to that, like, look at who he goes to pretty much set up with. His initial goal was to go to the HBCU. It goes back to that conversation of mediocrity, which I'm gonna get to in a second. But the idea of seeing Black people in any element of trying to better themselves as a problem, as a threat to whiteness, because it's a threat to the status quo. So that's why initially he goes to the HBCU first. Unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, that isn't successful. So he goes, where's the next place? Well, I'll go to Dollar General. Why Dollar General? Oh, well, I'm sure, it's gonna be some Black folks in there, like, right? And so the thing is, we've been in a society where white Americans have been used to operating as the standard, right? They are used to being seen as the say-all, be-all, end-all of everything. They're raised to be taught that they're the greatest at everything. They're raised to be taught that society wouldn't exist without them. They're raised to be taught that the world centers around their brilliance. That's what they have been raised to be taught, collectively, forever and a day. And now that we've come into a space where that narrative is being challenged and people are like, hold up, pause for a second. No, we're not doing that, because this whimsical theory that you have about yourself and your collective always comes at the expense of everybody else. You erase everybody else out of the pictures. And when we're just talking about even generational wealth or anything that stems from just the history of America and how America has operated, everybody has fallen collateral, especially Black folks. So we're not going to sit here and let you continue to just come up here and lie and make yourself feel good about things that are not true, right? So now, we're now getting into this space where you have a lot of white folks that are pissed because their level of comfort in regard to their mediocrity is always being challenged. And so now you have this 21-year-old who somehow thinks that the world is out to get him, and the only way that he can fix the problem is going after black folks who, again, were minding their business. And it goes back to what I've said a few times on this channel, where, again, when you have people who have no sense of self, no sense of purpose, they jump onto any and everything. It's easy to latch onto something crazy, especially when your only element and sense of purpose is whiteness, right? When whiteness is the only way that you identify, it's the only thing that you give leverage to, it's the only element of value in your life, and whiteness gets challenged because, again, people can highlight how whiteness has been detrimental to what you would call the United States experiment. All of a sudden, you have no way to respond, and all you know is rage and violence, right? And so that's why, okay, go to the HBCU. You're seeing students that are actually doing something, trying to make something better of their lives, and you can't stand it because you're 21, living at home, pissed off at the world. Nothing against living at home at 21, because I was doing the same thing. But somehow black students at an HBCU are a threat to your experience. Rather than working on yourself, rather than going and trying to create the life that you want, because you already have the roadmap handed to you, right? You're a white male living in America, and in Florida, of all places. I mean, it's follow the yellow brick road over there for y'all. But still, you still felt that everything was just super, super hard, and you had that much hatred that you must take it out on the black folks. So, okay, the HBCU doesn't work. Well, I'm going to go to the Dollar General, right? And it's crazy because, again, he could have gone anywhere in Jackson. So it just highlights how intentional this was. You go to the black side of town, you go to the HBCU, you go to the Dollar General, because you know there's going to be a specific collective in that store that you have smoke for. And so, you know what I mean? And so, again, it's not a mental health issue, because I've seen people try to say, you know, let's not just center this on race. Let's talk about mental health. And I'm like, it's always mental health when black folks get killed, right? Y'all always want to pull the mental health card every time somebody black get killed, right? But it just goes back again to that conversation of punitive entitlement. When folks don't get their way, they want everybody else to suffer. And so I'm just like, it's a lot of nonsense with this. And then Ron DeSantis, he can keep that BS speech that he had too, because he's so full of crap. You know, you sat here and campaigned and ran on this entire identity of just being a person who wants to destroy any element of progress, who wants to, where woke goes to die, Florida, right? You pretty much made your entire persona or your political campaign an attack on wokeness. And we've already had the conversation of the phrase woke. We've had a conversation on the phrase CRT. We've had a conversation on the race card and all these different phrases and everything else like that. And so understand, Ron DeSantis plays a huge role in all this. And same with like a lot of these other people who have enabled these talking points, who have enabled the idea that whiteness is under attack, who have enabled the idea of great white replacement theory and all that nonsense. I'm not going to go all into it because I've already talked about it on the Buffalo video. And at this point, we're in a cycle. It's like rinse, repeat, recycle. I'm getting tired of almost talking about the same thing. But it's like, you know, with these politicians, especially Ron DeSantis, they will give lip service with no policy. And so the same Ron DeSantis who's now trying to pretend all of a sudden he's for the people is the same Ron DeSantis who just did everything in his power to get rid of those 2 black congressional districts, but then wants to sit here and pretend all of a sudden he's for the people and racism has no place in Florida. You have created and allowed Florida to become what it is. You have enabled all of the chaos, all of the craziness. You've given a voice to the worst of the worst, the bottom tier of society, and let them feel empowered. And now because they feel empowered, they feel protected by their nonsense. They feel that they can go and do anything. And what's crazy is I guarantee you, had this dude not killed himself and would have been arrested, Americans would have already been donating to his GoFundMe, would have been donating to the lawyer fund, to the legal fees, right? Because that's how they move. And understand that this is bigger than Jacksonville, because again, it's not just limited to Jacksonville. You're seeing this happen all over the country, right? And the entire political climate of the country right now, our politics is centered in whiteness. It's not even centered in the idea of what's great for Americans or what's great for the country. It's all about who can keep white people the happiest right now. That's why you see a lot of the candidates we have running for office, right? That's why you see the nonsense that is there, right? And so it kind of pissed me off because I saw a comment and they were saying, well, Jacksonville happened as a response to what happened over in Alabama the other day, you know, when the people got beat up by the boat. And I was like, let's be realistic here, all right? Let's talk about Alabama. How did Alabama happen, right? Alabama happened because people did not want to just, one, mind their business, and two, all you had to do was move a boat. Conversation was over. The argument was done. A white man, decided to be the aggressor. Then the friends all jumped in, and you had all these white folks jumping on a black dude. Black folks jumped in to defend the black guy. And so, how are we correlating a brawl with a mass murder, right? Because one, when you want to talk about Alabama, nobody died. This is a conversation of self-defense and people sticking up for the community, sticking up for the collective, not going out here and purposely targeting a group and killing somebody, right? And so the idea of thinking that you can own black thought, black reaction, a black response, and then somehow justify mass murder by saying, well, y'all didn't comply or behave in the way that you should have, and that's why white people have responded the way they have. If anything, that goes to show again that collectively white people are inherently violent in these situations, because in most times they are the aggressor. So again, the idea of thinking that a brawl in another state that's totally unrelated to what's happening in Florida somehow is justifiably, going to be the reason why a person goes in a grocery store and shoots a bunch of random people that are minding their business. Okay, it goes back to that idea of policing tone, right? And so, they try to do it on this channel sometimes too. I'm sure if I look at the chat right now, there's a person or two in here let me have it and calling me all kind of monkeys and apes or whatever. But again, y'all know I'm not phased, right? And so again, like think about that same element, that same approach. If we're talking about what happened in Alabama is what triggered Florida. If anything, that reflects, again, even the race massacres that we've had in the past. When you talk about Rosewood or Tulsa or all of these different cities where, again, there was some kind of small offense that was reported. A lot of times the offense was not even true. And rather than responding to that offense, what happens? They drop the hammer and go straight to level 10, burn the city down, kill up everybody, lynch everybody, as they always do, right? And so, again, people randomly minding their business, becoming collateral to white rage. Okay, same thing with the Ahmaud Arbery. Somebody minding their business, here comes white rage. These folks in their mind have put so much in their head about a person that they've never met or had no interaction with because he was jogging. Somehow that would equate to a guy in the neighborhood who's been breaking into houses and somebody's gun was stolen out of a boat weeks earlier. And I had a daughter and I was thinking about my daughter, and they latch onto all of the racist stereotypes about black men or black women, black people being the aggressors, and somehow that can be the justifiable reason to go and chase after somebody with a shotgun and then get mad because he doesn't want to respond to you all and tries to leave. And then the third person shows up and they chase him with a truck and shoot and kill him. And then think they had, a justifiable reason to plead not guilty. And then even have the defense lawyer somehow bring up the fact that the man had dirty socks on when he died, as if that was supposed to justify him being killed with a shotgun. Like, this is the nonsense we're living under. And so, like, you just have an entire collective of people who have so many pockets where there's so many people in that demographic that just have hatred in their hearts, mad at the world. And the thing is, their goalposts will always move. There's never going to be an element of leverage or meeting in the middle on anything, because you can't meet in the middle on racism. And so every time when I keep seeing some of these news outlets or these politicians or public figures talking about we need to come to a space in the middle, there's no middle on racism. You just racist and there's a problem with it. Why is it that the burden is on black people to somehow fix what's wrong with white America? That is not our job. Y'all need to fix yourselves. Like, man, and I think, again, going back to that idea of folks being raised as a standard, like I think when you've been raised as the standard and, the standard of operation, the standard of how to do everything, you're never challenged to critically think. Collectively, in my opinion, white folks have never been critically challenged collectively. They don't have to critically think about anything collectively because they've always had privilege to back them. They've always had a racist institution to back them. Yes, there are individuals who understand what I'm talking about. They get it. They're not going to be the ones who come on here and talk about, not all white people. We got that. But again, the conversation of just that collective thought, because they collectively have never had to really be critically challenged on anything, a lot of times their only response is violence. Because they're not used to being on the other side of an argument. They're not used to being on the wrong side of history because, again, they got to create history. They got to write the narratives. They got to say who was the heroes. They got to say who were going to be the bad people, the good guys versus the bad guys. And now in these moments where things are being challenged, things are being called out, they don't know how to act. And so that's why you're seeing 18 and 21-year-olds go and shoot up folks that are minding their business, go and just spray everybody. They don't even know how to be challenged. And it goes back again to that idea of mediocrity. When you've been raised as the standard and everything, but then you start to sit and realize maybe you're not as talented as you thought you were, and you're seeing other people work hard and thrive or do whatever they got to do to get where they want to be, and you're still not doing great after you had a whole system back and get you there, and then you forget that capitalism, the way that system works is there's still going to be people at the bottom, even when it comes to race. And hey, for some of y'all end up at the bottom. And then oddly enough, there are some who are still very successful and still latch onto the nonsense. So again, when that mediocrity is challenged and you have no sense of identity, no sense of self, and your only element of identity is whiteness, and you feel that whiteness has been challenged, and again, because collectively white Americans have never had to critically think about anything, what's the first reaction? Violence. And it doesn't just happen with violence as far as them going and killing folks, but we see it with the policy. Look at what's happening with education, how everything is being challenged and attacked every 5 minutes. Okay, look at the programs that they're fighting to cut every 5 minutes. Look at what people run on. People have entire campaigns that are successful where they run on no policy. Their only policy is just be punitive to everybody who's not us. And they make it far. Think about why Trump is still the front runner in this election. Somebody who has, 91 different counts against him, 4 different cases pending, all of this nonsense, but people will still latch onto this man because he represents a voice that many white Americans felt comfortable that they can finally say, hey, there's somebody that thinks like us and they're loud about it. Now we're empowered. Okay, so he is the face of whiteness in America, right? And so they're going to still get behind him. The only way that Trump is not going to be the GOP nominee is if they pretty much kick him out of it somehow. He is, and it's funny because look at what just happened with the debate from the other day and the nonsense that was there. Like, I sat and I watched the bits that I could sit through. And when it came to policy, it was so interesting because I just noticed like there was never any conversation of policy. Like nobody had any plans. Nobody had what they want to roll out. It was all reactive about the good guy and the bad guy and what this person is doing and what this person isn't doing. And it's like, again, that idea of just the anti-blackness that floats around in our politics. How can you appease white America and keep them comfortable enough to want to keep voting for you? And this is why, and I'm going to get to like Vivek and Nikki and some of those other ones who have to play that card and play that role in order to get a step up because they recognize that they don't have the right skin to get in the door, but they can say the talking points to get closer to the door. I'll get to them in a minute. But I will say, this brings me to a question, and I hope folks don't take this the wrong way, because if you do, it ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm sorry. It's just how I feel. My question is, when does the anti-black hate crime bill come out at this point? And I'm asking that because, and we've seen what happened. They made the anti-Asian one after there was some reported attacks and everything like that, where people were being, jumped in back alleys and stuff. Okay, they got their bill. Wonderful. So now when we talk about Black America, and Black America has had a history of being on the receiving end of white aggression for as long as we have been here, whether it be slavery, whether it be everything that happened during Reconstruction and all the kickback during Reconstruction, whether it be all of the racial massacres, whether it be everything during Jim Crow, whether it be all of the mass shootings that we keep seeing, even when we talk policy and what's happening in our politics, right? And all of these different hate groups and everything else that's out there. Like, it's to a point where I don't even like going into large groups of Black folks sometimes because I'm always kind of paranoid about a white person showing up, right? And so my question is, well, where's the bill for Black folks? Because at this point, Charleston 9 should have been the ringer. That should have been the moment. Let's write a bill, right? Buffalo, that should have been the moment. Okay, it's time to write a bill, right? Here we are with Jacksonville. And the craziest part with my theory is they're never going to give a bill. And they're not going to give a bill because, again, acknowledging that violence against Black people is a problem automatically goes against the status quo because it's normalized here. White America thinks that that's just the way it's supposed to be. And by giving Black Americans a bill, they're going to center themselves in it and then start saying, well, what about everyone else? And then it's going to talk about the attacks on white people. And they're going to go and find these handful of isolated incidents where white folks were on the receiving end of some kind of attack. And then forget the fact that white people in the United States have never been collectively oppressed by any systems, by any laws, by any covenants, ordinances, any policy ever, period. You can sit here and try to weasel and manipulate and reword everything, but please find me the policy where white people have suffered at the hands of Blackness. They never have, right? So my question becomes, where's the anti-Black hate bill, crime bill? Where's that bill at? It should have been here. It should have been here about 100, 200 years ago, right? But folks will keep playing in our faces. So, I'm just like, it's a mess out here. I'm going to pause because I got more to say, but I need a quick minute just to get my thoughts straight here. I'm going to sit this down here because I don't like this tea bag like that. Man, literally 21 years old, 21, you have that much hatred in your heart, you go and shoot some random bystanders. When I think back to what I was doing at 21, well, depending on life before and after college, 21, I still thought the world was like at my feet. Like 21 is like, there's so much that's out there, especially even when you talk about the Buffalo shooter at 18, you're supposed to still be wanting to go to the moon. You're supposed to want to have some, I'm going to start this big giant business and I'm going to own the tallest skyscraper in New York and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But you have that much hatred and rage in your heart that's been embedded that not only can you not sit with that rage, you have to do something with it and you execute it by executing other people. And it's become normalized. And then these people end up being heroes, right? They get the Kyle Rittenhouse treatment. Folks throw millions at them. Folks try to make them martyrs and everything like that. Like, what a waste. All right, let me read some comments. All right. Freaking dang swastikas on the weapons. Every element of hate that you can think of, and folks will still play in your face and act like there's not a problem around here. Well, yeah, there's going to be isolated incidents, and like I said, they'll bring up some random moment where what about the Black? So, it's always a what about, and I'm like, how come you don't ever bring up the what about before the what about? How come you didn't just bring it up initially before I said what I had to say? You weren't thinking about anything until it's reactive, which goes into one more thing I want to say, because somebody else said something to me the other day that I did not like. It took everything in me to not light them up, because I normally don't argue on YouTube in the comments section because I'm not that pressed. But somebody was saying, well, you have to look at it from the other side. Think about how white people feel when they hear black people say like black power this or black excellence. And I said, what? All right, let's have that conversation. You have the whole conversation of black empowerment, right? You have the conversation of white empowerment. The difference between the two is one was created specifically to ensure that a power structure stayed in place, to ensure that other marginalized groups would stay beneath them, to ensure that in that element of power that they had collectively, no other group would be able to thrive. No other group would be able to have any element of authority in anything, because they would be the authoritative figure. They would be the figure that gets to push and do whatever they want to do. Now, the conversation of any kind of black empowerment was in response to ensure that black Americans collectively felt empowered about who they were, that they could celebrate themselves, that they could love themselves in a society that does not love them. The idea of white pride, anything, has all been now a response to black empowerment, which I find so interesting, right? So again, trying to paint the idea of black people celebrating themselves cannot equate to trying to say, well, when white people do it, they're just celebrating their heritage. No, your heritage, because again, when we want to talk about the idea of whiteness was not a thing until you had to create the idea of racism. Going back to our conversation about the labor unions and everything else like that. And actually, I think this was in the last video I did with Tulsa in the news. Again, remember, up until you get to the late 1890s and the early 20th century, whiteness was not a thing. Everybody still operated by nationality. Everybody was, I'm Polish, I'm German, I'm French, I'm Italian, I'm Swedish, I'm Austrian, I'm Dutch, I'm this, I'm Finnish, I'm Portuguese, right? And then we get into the space where you start creating the labor unions, and they recognize that they have more power in the idea of whiteness if they all get together and become white, as opposed to being the different nationalities. Because again, black people had this massive collective of people who were very skilled and had all these talents, and were like, how come we can't get in the labor unions? And they needed a reason why. Well, actually, this is kind of for us, because we've all decided we're going to be white now. Now we are a thing. And so again, that idea of white pride or white power, it's all been centered in the idea of oppressing another group from day one. So when folks try to sit here and say, well, what's wrong with white pride? Look, go ahead and be white, be proud, I guess, whatever. But again, it's always going to be in response to something centered around blackness. It's always going to be an element of anti-blackness, in my opinion. It's always been centered from that space, because again, y'all weren't thinking about the idea of white pride or anything until black folks started celebrating themselves as a response to a system that you put into play that told us that we were less than, that we were beneath, that we were inferior. And when we started to seam rip and challenge that, now you want to turn the tables and paint it as if you're oppressed because black people are celebrating themselves. And we're seeing that in Hollywood. It goes back to even the conversations about woke, right? Now, anytime you see a movie or something where maybe there was, there's too many people that are from different races in the movie. Oh, this movie is a little too woke for me. What do you think all that is rooted in? Like, folks, understand all this crap comes back full circle no matter how many ways you want to twist it. Like, don't play these games with me, because you'll always get ended every single time. Anyway. And then I'm trying to figure out what took 11 minutes for them to get to the store. Police over there in Jacksonville. 11 minutes to get to the store after they first started shooting. And seeing that the HBCU had already told the police, hey, there's a suspicious person out here, that should have already been the heads up that, okay, y'all need to keep tabs on whatever this person is doing. But so be it. All right, let me read some comments here. KO said, yes, this reminds them of the Buffalo shooting. That guy, MC McFly, says, funny how all these mass shootings, the cops say it was a lone wolf. Almost immediately, they say this guy was alone. Walking Light says, I rarely saw white customers in the Dollar General and Family Dollar stores, so this guy knew where to find black people. I agree with that. I will say they were also on the black side of town, because when you start going to the white sides of town, white folks be having Dollar General packed out as well. Like, again, like there's a huge chunk of Americans who literally do their grocery shopping at a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree or a dollar store. And so it's interesting to just see that, again, you're so mad that you go after the people who are just trying to make it. They piecing it together with the best that they have, trying to get the best deals to go shop, and you still got a problem with them. Man. Shanzi said, yes, please stop thinking racism is going to die out with older generations. They keep growing up with it. Like, right, we're already in a new generation. It's already embedded. And I think this upcoming generation and the one that's kind of coming up now, I think they're in a worse off predicament than some of the other groups, because hell, even their education is being challenged. Stuff is being yanked out of the schools, right? And they're also in this era of extremism where a lot of these talking points are normalized. Just think at how much the goalposts has moved. Remember when Orange Man initially was first running for office and he said the stuff about Mexico and they weren't sending their best, and then like in a week, I mean, they yanked him from The Apprentice. They were pulling his tie line out of Macy's and all this different stuff. Now people can say that exact same thing now and nothing happens. It's just like, oh, okay. Nor it's just normalized. Like that's how much the goalposts have started to move in regards to just how people respond to racism in the United States. Like it's becoming more enabled. People feel empowered. And that's why a lot of these politicians now they have no problem aligning with Nazis and they have no problem saying these very white nationalist talking points. And they do it with no regard for any kind of punitive response because they're not afraid. They know they have backing. They know that they can say they're out to get me and people will donate to their GoFundMe and make those people heroes. Then those people run for office. Like, man. Miss Smith said it's very racist here in Jackson. I had to turn into a driveway to make a U-turn the other day, and the white owner came out screaming and cursing at me, and he sees my three young children in the car. I mean, I 100% hear that, but we're also at a place where it's just the country as a whole. Now, I 100% believe anything that comes out of Florida. Whatever y'all say, I believe, because I haven't seen too much nonsense. But like, man, yeah, we've seen so many stories now where, again, people pull into a driveway, making a U-turn, and folks come out shooting. We've seen a few folks get killed from that, like, which is crazy. Um, yeah, these people, these public figures, they stir the pot, and then they try to paint the people who call it out as the aggressors. Like you'll hear a lot of folks say, "Well, we've gotten so divisive or divisive. These people keep talking about race." And no, the people that are talking about race are the people responding to the racist aggressions and the racist attacks that keep taking place and saying, how come nobody's doing anything about it? And again, like these are the issues. This is why history is important. This is why it's important to understand what has happened in the past so it doesn't happen again. But y'all don't want to have that conversation because all of a sudden it's going to paint a certain collective not in the best light. And again, when you get to operate as the standard in the status quo, you don't want to be seen as the aggressor. So you paint the person on the receiving end of the offense to be the aggressor. Imagine that. Ms. Smith said DeSantis emboldened these races here. Of course, like everything, DeSantis to me, God, this is lucky. Y'all lucky this is YouTube. I can't say what I really be feeling sometimes. But no, again, he's built an entire political identity on killing woke. And that language, that verbiage, that is pretty much that's code to get on code for white in regards to like white Americans latching on, which is why he's so popular in Florida, right? White Florida voters love DeSantis. Love them some DeSantis. All right. Call everything woke. Let's see. Tyler Hackner says, I'm 21 and I just moved out 2 weeks ago. You don't see me out here harming people. I just, these folks are so loony. And again, just think the idea of you don't get your way, so somebody got to die. Like, how entitled can you be? Right? And really, what are you mad at? You know, that's the other thing. A lot of these folks don't even know what they're mad at. They just know that they're mad. And I think a lot of that comes from, again, their history and lineage is so warped with a whole bunch of falsehoods that they don't even know who they are. And again, that's why they latch on to whiteness. That's all they got to latch on to. It's the one thing that makes them feel empowered. Because for them, it's at least I'm not black. At least I'm not whatever other nationality. And even when it comes to religion, at least I'm not Muslim or whatever else. When that gets challenged, somebody has to pay. Like, man. Let's see. Exactly. It had nothing to do with Montgomery, nothing to do with no Alabama. I love that quote, DD LaShawn. It's giving how dare black people stand united. That's in regard to what happened in Alabama. Again, that idea of like the fact that you're gonna sit there and say, well, it might be a response to what happened in Alabama. If that's the case, then black people have a right to respond to a whole bunch of stuff that's way more bigger than Alabama. And I don't think people would want that. So if we're going to use that ideology, you might want to go back to the drawing board because that might not be the best idea. All right. Black America got some smoke for this country. So play around if you want to. Anyway. Mm, mm, mm. Calvin, I'm so glad I found you. You were restoring my hope in our people. I've been so disappointed in our people lately, stumping like hoons for Desantis and Trump. I just don't get it. I will say, I think I have it later in here about Agents of Chaos. I'll pause it. I'll come back to it because I want to stay in my order so I don't get off my little soapbox here. But no, yeah, you have a lot of folks who are Agents of Chaos that just they jump in. And the other thing too, if we want to talk about collectively what's happening in the Black community, there are also some Black folks who personally I feel don't like Black folks. I mean, they're Black, they're fine with being Black, but they don't like Black folks. They want to be different. They want to stand out. They don't. And when I say they don't like Black folks, they don't like what they perceive as the image of what America thinks Black people are. So they want to be different. They want to stand out. So they'll latch onto all kind of crazy things to try to be somebody who thinks outside of the box. This is where we got that wave of the folks who run around talking about their free thinkers, but their free thinking is all latched to white nationalist talking points, right? So that's always interesting to me. Like, I think you have a lot of folks like that who just latch on to everything. Like, go look at the comment section on like the Shade Room and read the nonsense you see on there. There's a lot of folks on there who just speak from rage with no context. They respond with no context, no education on anything, but they know if they can just have the loudest point and sound like they're standing on the tallest soapbox, they'll have a following. There's a lot of folks who want to be the face of something without the work, and they're getting platforms. They're growing all over. Crazy. Oh, Vivek. Oh, I'm gonna drag him a little bit later too. I'm about sick of him too. Calvin, it's Eleanor. Did you see the video of the Black men wearing the N words for Trump t-shirt? And he was going on about why he loves Trump. Paid off. There's always going to be some knuckleheads in the collective. But no, first of all, I've already said any kind of group that says blacks with the title is some paid off group because Black people, we've never collectively called ourselves blacks. You know, with the blacks for Trump. Like, that's some nonsense. And again, that's you keep seeing that same dude with the braid tied back. You done seen him since 2016. It's the same folks paid off. And it's not saying that there aren't Black Trump voters, but like, the interesting thing is, and I'm gonna get to him because we're gonna talk about that mugshot next. That's the next person to get to. But like, yeah, there's a lot of folks who, for some reason, think Black people again were just one big monolith, and all you need is a few representatives, and a few rappers, and a few entertainers, and boom, you got the Black endorsement. That's the purpose of something like a Blacks for Trump. They have no purpose. They show up when he does these rallies. They stand right behind him. That's supposed to be the diversity quota, I guess. They stand there with that nonsense, like, I guess. And then again, remember that conversation I said about the whole Agents of Chaos and then trying to make it seem like the rest of the Black collective is stupid if they don't get on board with what they have. That's how they move. They'll sit here and try to tell you you're crazy because you don't want to support somebody like a Trump. Like, yeah, Trump is never. Sorry. And then they'll bring up Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or something as if that's kryptonite to me still not effing with Trump. Like, it ain't changing over here. Tyler Hackman said there was a George Floyd justice in policing, and that barely got passed, and that got stripped and chopped down to a watered down version of the bill. And I hear that, but that's just policing. I think when you're talking about these mass shootings, these are the everyday citizens going out here. So I think, yeah, definitely a bill with policing, but they got to be more for just citizens in general. Like, if the Asian community got their bill because and they didn't even ask for a bill, one was thrown to them. They got their bill. Good for them. Happy for them. Y'all get what's yours. Good for y'all. So I'm like, in the same way that they've dealt with what they dealt with, I'm watching my folks get slaughtered in mass shootings every 6 months, right? I'm watching policy get written against me. And that same collective that has an anti-Asian hate bill also was some of the main ringleaders with the whole affirmative action being gutted. So it's kind of like, where's the anti-Black hate crime bill? Those are the questions that need answers around here. They barely passed that anti-lynching bill. Look, it took, 100 years to do that? And that really doesn't even mean anything. To be honest, it's just a lip service bill. It's really lip service. They can always talk a good game. All right. We're also now seeing, I forgot what the name of the law is. I think it's HB 4321, something like that. What's his channel? I always forget to shout him out. I think it's Taurine Reloaded. I think he talked about it on his channel. But there's even a whole bill where they're still trying to push it through. But with this bill, pretty much any state that would latch on or pass any kind of governing legislation in support of reparations would automatically lose any kind of state funding to support those reparations or federal funding. Like, they know what they're doing. All right. So again, that conversation of cementing and ensuring that the status quo stays the way it is, they playing these games in our faces. NapCB said, "What's so woke about going shopping at a dollar store?" The question becomes, understand when you hear the phrase woke. A lot of times when you hear the phrase woke, it's associated automatically with folks who, again, challenge the status quo. And a lot of times the status quo gets challenged because it highlights the fact that that status quo is normally detrimental to a collective of people. And in most instances, when I'm talking on my channel, I'm talking about Black people. So again, for some folks, just seeing Black people exist is a problem. For some folks, seeing Black people have a piece of anything, or even if they got a piece of nothing, they'll try to take that from them too. I don't want you having nothing. You need to have nothing of nothing. Like, I'm going to be the one that has nothing, not you. Like, that's literally where we're at. So, bunch of nonsense. Somebody said Pharrell was on that free thinker stuff, and you see his free thinking changed when, I'm not trying to speak ill, but when the stuff happened to his family member, you saw how that movement changed. And that's the thing I wish sometimes, I think folks have to get out of the habit of I don't care until it happens to me and my folks. I think that's a horrible way of moving through society, because what happens is you become so dismissive of everybody's experience until something comes to your front doorstep, and then you want to bring out the troops and march and rally. And it's like, well, when we needed you and you had a public platform and you had influence, you told us we were crazy. We needed to not latch onto the problems of the past and stop making excuses for ourselves. And we were just fighting against people killing us. Like, what? Mm. Don't worry, Felicia. I'm coming with Arkansas in a minute too. I already saw the thing about the AP bill, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders is going to be catching it too. This is not even isolated to just Florida. This is the United States in general. But right now, I'm talking about Florida since the shooting happened in Florida. All right. Huh, Candace Owens. She's been quiet lately. I ain't seen her in a while. What's she up to? Okay, let us keep going. All right, so this would be, let's see how, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because I'm not that pressed. So then you got Orange Man in the mugshot. He finally got the mugshot and been processed again. Let me see. What do I want to say about him? What did I write here? Oh, I will say this. I did think he was going to smile in the mugshot. I ain't going to lie. I thought, just seeing how he normally moves, I thought he was going to smile and then let that kind of be a way to troll. And then they sell some t-shirts and stuff. But I guess they're already selling t-shirts and stuff now. But the thing that I find funny is, one, I don't feel sorry for this man. This man is not a victim. I don't know why. Anytime they only want to have conversations about injustices with the prison industrial complex and the judicial system when one of these wealthy white men get caught up. Any other time they're silent about it and endorse everything that's wrong with the system and want to lock us up for everything. Now all of a sudden it's because you done got caught up in the system. you feel some kind of way. We're supposed to rally behind you. Absolutely not. So when they keep going and doing these speeches like him and Giuliani talking about, oh, if they do it to us, they'll do it to you. No, I didn't try to steal an election. I didn't go and try to have fake electors try to certify false documents. I didn't do any of that. I didn't encourage people to go and storm a federal building. I didn't encourage people to go and kill a few police officers. I didn't encourage people to go and try to kill the Congress and the Senate. You know what I mean? I didn't do any of that. I didn't sit here and lie and paint two Black women to be the faces of election and voter fraud. That I'm talking about Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, where to the point where these two Black women have death threats because people think they have stolen some kind of ballots and cheated and were passing a USB port, and the guy said they passed it just like it was crack. What? Yeah, I didn't do none of that. So that's on y'all. So no, they're not coming after me because I ain't did nothing. Like, that's y'all latching onto your own foolery. They'll do it to you. No, see, again, they've been thinking that they could just go and do whatever because of who they were and the weight that they carried. And sorry, the system somewhat did not work for them in the way that they wanted it to work. So now they want to pull in the same demographic that they don't even like and try to make us rally behind them, right? One of the most interesting things I saw with this, I saw a lot of like publications and a lot of like right-wing conservative pundits talking about, oh, Trump now has a lot of leverage with Black Americans because they understand what it's like to be. I was like, y'all, I'm not doing this. Who the way they just think we stupid. You know, they were like comparing him to Tupac, and you know he's gonna be a hero to the people and everything else like that. I'm like, this is not how this works. It's not how this works. Okay, this is the same man when he was supposed to introduce his Black History program. Instead, he made that tweet about, I'm gonna send the National Guard to Chicago since y'all don't know how to act down there with that violence, right? The same person who just said Atlanta was pretty much a shit show and just crime written and everything else. Now all of a sudden y'all think he likes black people. Y'all keep running behind him if you want to. Like I said, he's not a victim. Literally, the reason he's even being arrested in Georgia is because, again, pissed off because they didn't like the way that black people in Georgia voted. So there must be something wrong with it. They must have cheated. Fulton County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, Henry County, all these places, these votes are not, something is wrong here. These black folks must have cheated. Yeah, there was all kind of voter fraud. Yeah, look at the mom and her mama that were counting the votes. They were cheating. They were pushing suitcases of ballots, and then they pushed this whole narrative, right? And got all of America latching on to it. And, you know, all the voter fraud, millions of fake votes, and millions of people voted illegally. And even the people who ain't even supposed to be here because they're not documented, millions of them even voted. I was like, why do y'all think millions of people would want to risk their livelihood for any politician? I don't care how much you, well, I take that back because we see how the MAGA folks move. But I will say this on that Democrat side. I don't think there's anybody willing to commit mass voter fraud in the name of Joe Biden, in the name of Bernie Sanders, in the name of any Democrat politician, because it's just like, no. And it goes back to the idea of we are not supposed to be married to our politicians. We're not supposed to be fans of our politicians. They are there to do a job. So if somebody that you like does not get in, okay, that sucks. But you know what? There's another election cycle that comes in 4 years. And in the meantime, there's going to be a whole bunch of local elections that are going to take place in the next year or the next 18 months. So let's go ahead and make sure we lock those down. So that gives us leverage to the point where we can make that person up top powerless, and they have to kind of bend to the wills of the needs of what the people want. But instead, they're going to paint this narrative that, you know, millions of people wanted Joe to get in there so bad that they would cheat and lie and steal the election. And I'm just like, they play on the stupidity of Americans and run with this, right? And so, no, he's not a victim. I don't want to hear it. And what's also funny, I was like, he went and did that bail bondsman. I was like, for someone that's worth $10 billion, he sure moves like he's real broke. He really be moving like he cutting them coupons, to be honest. Like he's moving with, like, I don't know. He's starting to give the what's the lunch special energy. Like, because this is a weird $10 billion. He always got money that he's asking everybody for. The defense fund. Why are we paying, well, not we, like, why are you soliciting money for your defense fund if you're so wealthy and so rich? That's the question I got. Right? Somebody asked me about the Harrison Floyd guy, the black dude that, you know, still locked up in there. Listen, at this point, Trump showed you what his cards were a long time ago. If you were still fool enough to jump and get behind him with the foolery that he was doing and you knew it was illegal, I don't know what to tell you. That's on you. So no, again, this is not going to be a situation where it's, oh, we must get the man out of the system. He decided to play silly games with that system, knowing how the system moves. So there's an example out of him. Good luck. Like, please. Where else I want to go with this? I'm going to pause, actually. All right. And before I even get to these comments, don't come on here bringing up Joe or whatever he got going, because y'all know Joe gets the smoke from me as well. The idea of thinking that black people are so stupid that if they have a problem with Donald Trump, all of a sudden it must mean we 100% endorse everything that Joe does. That's not how this works. But at the same time, I still recognize when you're talking about which party you have a bit more leverage with, I think we need to be realistic, because folks keep starting to, because again, it's about to be election season. It's about to be very annoying on YouTube. I'm about to be annoyed until 2024 is over. But I'm going to start seeing all the people come and say, well, what about the Democrats? And we spend a lot of time lighting them up. But I've always said it is not the point to let the disappointment you have with Democrats allow Republicans to just do whatever they get to do. That should not give them a pass to go and do what they do, because we're seeing how they're moving right now. And to me, there is no leverage with Republicans in anything, because they don't need the black vote for anything. They can win with, white votes strictly. They don't need us. So there's no leverage with Republicans, in my opinion. Does that mean that the Democrat Party is perfect? Absolutely not. They got a whole lot of flaws. There's a lot of symbolism in there they get on my nerves with. But I always say, look at it like this. If you got a house and your kitchen is on fire and your basement is flooding, which one do you go to first? Right? You could go in, and we'll say the basement flooding is the Democrats, and we can say the kitchen on fire is the Republicans. Now, the basement is going to flood, and eventually you do have to take care of that water, because if you don't, it will affect the foundation of the house. The whole house might collapse, and you don't want the water to keep coming into the rest of the house. Yes, but fire moves a little bit faster than a basement that's flooding. So my thing is, why don't you put out the fire first? then take care of the water. That's how I've always looked at it. But folks make it seem like it can only be one or the other, or folks make it look like, everything is very obtuse and it's either you're 100% in one piece or you're 100% against the other, where it's like, let's just look at where the leverage is. Like, work with what you got until you get something that's better. Because again, we're going into the same cycle where, again, it's about to be agents of chaos who show up, give a whole bunch of misinformation, and yeah, it's gonna be a shit show. And here we go. Let's just be ready. Y'all give me the strength. I almost want to not even talk politics when the election season kicks in. Like, let me just bypass it for my peace. All these parties are flawed, but I think they have different vendettas and different movements. And I think the biggest flaw I've always had, or biggest critique I've had with Joe is, in my opinion, I think Joe is somebody who just was obsessed with wanting to have power, where he would go wherever the wind blows, which is why he went so hard with that crime bill, because that's the time period where it was like, oh, crime is up. And you have like the CBC, 58% of black voters saying, oh, please do something about the crime. And he's, oh, I'm going to show y'all the crime, because I'm going back. Republicans have been in power for all of the 80s. In the early 90s, they've been in power for everything. The Reagan years, they got Carter up out of there. Go back to them two Reagan elections. Like, hold on, let me pull it up, because I remember one of them elections, Reagan won every state except Minnesota. Like, that's how crazy our politics was. But anyway, going back to my point. So then, you have this whole movement because Democrats wanted to get in power so bad because Republicans were just cleaning the house, having a good time, having a ball, right? Reagan's having a good time. Bush gets up in there. They're just having a great time. Now, Americans are finally getting tired, so you're starting to see shifts in the House and the Senate. But again, Democrats wanted to get in power so bad. And the criticism that was on Democrats at the time was they're not tough enough on crime. They need to do something about it. So then you get the Democrats, and they run in there. We're going to be tough on crime. We're going to lock everybody up. And then Joe, the main ringleader, anything to get in power, right? That's what has always been my critique of Joe. He will go wherever the wind blows. So now in this moment where the wave has shifted in another direction, now he's going in that direction. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to go in that direction, just go in the direction I need you to go in while you keep shifting him. I've already said I wish he didn't run for re-election, and I wish he would have had somebody else, but we'll see how this goes. Anyway, enough on politics. Man. Grapeshot said, when they call a black person a free thinker, that means that black person is down with white supremacy. And I think that the approach with that, just from my synopsis and observation, again, is every person that I've seen that's ran on the idea of being a free thinker, again, they always align with like some white nationalist policy. And they'll be the ones who are like, well, Hitler wasn't really that bad of a leader. He was able to get people to come. I'm like, y'all just be saying all kind of bull. You want to sound edgy so bad. Like, man, just be out here saying anything, right? A bunch of crazy nonsense. Anyway. Oh, there we go. That guy McFly moved the goalpost again. Went from law and order to defund the FBI. These people don't care about the hypocrisy. Remember, look, when Orange Man got into his inauguration, the first thing he said for his speech, law and order. He couldn't wait to say that part because, again, that's the smoking guns and cold words. And you know who that was for? That was for us. Bunch of Negroes, y'all about to learn now. Right? Law and order. And folks in there was cheering. He was about to lock everybody up. Right? Crazy. And then talking about he 215 pounds. Okay. They just be lying. Just how you lying on when they book you? Just lie about everything. My God. Playing in our faces. Yeah, again, the folks trying to say all of a sudden it gave him leverage with the black community because we know what it's like to be incarcerated. No, these are not the same conversations. I also do think there's definitely a movement where I think there are a lot of people who are being paid, especially black folks, who are being paid to kind of push very like right-wing, white nationalist talking points that are getting these platforms. I think there's somebody behind the scenes paying some folks off, because you're starting to see a whole lot of people who carry a lot of influence saying some real out-of-pocket stuff, even when the folks were talking about the stuff about, slavery wasn't that bad. Then you start seeing black folks jumping in. Well, now that I think about it, it was a necessary evil in order for us to have the things that we have. We ain't got nothing. What are you talking? Whoo! Sometimes I just want to start throwing hands. I don't even want to talk no more. I want to just start punching people in the back of the face, to be real honest. Like, some of y'all just stop talking. Like, Lord, follow the money, people. Follow the money. Thank you, Tyler Hackner. We can't be standing politicians. They're supposed to serve us. That's where I'm at. There is no politician that I have any loyalty to. If I vote for you, I expect you to do what you said you're going to do. If you ain't going to do it, all right, I'm going to get somebody else. Or you're just going to get hell on earth because I'm going to find every other reason to give you smoke, right? I'm going to make sure that at that local level, I'm going to put all the kind of people in that I need, right? So by the time things get to your desk, it's stuff that you have no say over, and you just got to sign it and say, damn, they were smart, right? Anyway. Somebody, LA Music said, absolutely, Trump is a rock star. He's not a rapper, though. And I think the idea of this whole thing of like celebrity and politics don't go together. Like, we got to get out of the habit of allowing celebrities to be our voices. They don't live in our world. I don't care how cool they sound, how down they sound. I don't look to a single celebrity for any kind of political advice on anything. They don't live in my world. They don't live in my tax bracket. They get privileges that a lot of us don't have. And a lot of times they flake. And look at Diddy. Diddy goes wherever, just like Joe, goes wherever the wind blows, right? Wherever, Diddy can't ever make up his mind with where he stands politically, but then wants to be the face of a movement and stuff. Like, no, I do not get behind these celebrities at all. Nope, not for politics. Y'all job is to entertain, make me laugh, make me cry at a movie, make me dance, but at a concert. But I'm not getting behind any celebrity with anything politically, because a lot of them don't know anything. And then you get on these podcasts and these platforms, and again, they're not studied. They don't know it. When I say they know nothing, they know nothing. But they get on these platforms and they think because they are famous or because they have, a celebrity status, that they can just say any and everything, and it's the law of the land, because people will stand behind them. And that's how we get a lot of these celebrities that have pretty much sold us down the river for a come up. Not doing it. Not doing it. Let's see. Just flush everybody out. I'm tired of everybody in politics. Everybody get on my nerves. All right, we got to keep moving because I got so much more stuff to cover. Man. Somebody said all these shade room type blogs, FBI got to be back in shade. I'm enjoying the fact that people are starting to finally see like things like the shade room for what they are, and some of these like Rap House TV and some of these platforms that a lot of these aren't even like owned by black folks anyway. Well, the shade room is, I think it's this Nigerian woman, but like all these different platforms that somehow try to operate and serve as the voice of black culture, and they're not. They're again agents of chaos. Turmoil, all kind of nonsense, but they try to push themselves as the platforms for black voices. Same thing with Breakfast Club. I'm gonna lighten them up in a minute too. Like a lot of these folks are on some BS. So just be mindful of the kind of stuff you consume and what you get behind, and always go and look and back up with like 2 or 3 more additional sources. And the source cannot be believe me, bro, and it cannot be a meme with big letters. Right? Man. All right. Arkansas. See, Felicia, I told you it was coming right to Arkansas. Okay, so going back to what I've been saying since about 2018, I've been saying for the longest that one of the things we're seeing in the United States as a response to people questioning and challenging the status quo is you see a lot of people in positions of power working to cement things so that that idea of what you call like that white supremacy system that operates and runs the United States stays in power. Now we have Arkansas, where you got Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Now, I ain't fired her up in a good minute, but like I've said before, every time she lies, that eyebrow gets higher and higher and higher on the one side. I don't know if she needs to like Botox it to push it back down or what, but every time she lies, that one eyebrow gets higher and higher. But anyway, she's pretty much signed this bill where they were going to pretty much strip the weight from AP classes that taught Black history, meaning that Black AP history classes would not count for credit in regard to college. With the AP system, you take enough of the AP classes, you can get a college credit. They were trying to pull it out and, yank it out. And again, this is almost going back to what I said when Ron DeSantis started this mess some months back. I said, you weren't going to just see it in Florida. It was going to slowly spread. All you need was one person to tip the domino. Now the dominoes are starting to fall. Now, Huckabee Sanders, her response to why she felt it was reasonable to do such a thing was the department encourages the teaching of all American history and supports rigorous courses not based on opinions or indoctrination. I'm going to pause for 1 second before I get to opinions and indoctrination. But I will say, in response to what happened, a lot of those school districts actually refuted and rejected that bill and said, we're still going to teach the classes. And so now the classes are still going to be there, but they're just saying it has no weight. Let's get back to that term indoctrination. let's get back to that term, opinions. History, it's funny how when white America wants to paint themselves to be the saviors of the world, it's fact. When folks go and find the actual facts that refute some of those viewpoints, now all of a sudden it's opinion, right? It's kind of like when Ron DeSantis went up there and did that one speech where he was like, yeah, they're trying to say that, we went and we killed all the Native Americans. And, we just know that that's not true. Like, they just literally will go in front of a mic and say anything. And it's true because they said it's true. Like, that's the nonsense. But recognize, going back to that same conversation of how I said that specific collective has never been challenged to critically think, what do they always do? The response is always something super irrational. If it's not violence, it's a way to shut things down. So the other thing is they love blanket statements. Dang, these sounds a loud city living. And so now we have the phrase indoctrination. Somehow, apparently, teaching history is indoctrination, right? And this is killing me soft. That would close the door. Lord. So somehow history is indoctrination. Lord. So yeah, apparently indoctrination is learning history. Now the children are being indoctrinated because they're learning history. See how they use these different terms and everything like that? Or remember when socialism was thrown around the time you got Barack, who started to run everything. Oh, he's a socialist, socialism. Most of these folks cannot even explain what socialism is, but they just use it as a word, kind of like how they would do race card. And then we got CRT, right? The CRT, we haven't heard that phrase in a while because it's kind of transitioned into the term woke, right? And so we have woke and everything else like that. So now it's all the kids are being indoctrinated because they're learning about history. Imagine that. And see, understand, when your whole lineage and your whole history is rooted in like pillaging and death and violence and oppressing others, of course you don't want other people to know about it, because what have I said every single time when we talk about unraveling and really jumping into the details of history? First, you discover what the offense is. You discover what happened and why. And when people start asking why, then you have to explain what the why is. What was the why rooted in? That brings in the conversation of racism. Then when you talk about, well, what do you do to fix the problem? Now that means putting out ways that somewhat would remedy the offense that still exists today. But again, remedying that expense or offense would pretty much mean going against the status quo. That's a conversation of reparations. That's a conversation of policy change. That's a conversation of making people whole. That's a conversation of restorative justice. That's a conversation of a bunch of things. People don't want that because, again, it's going to make that element of comfortability that I talked about earlier, that element of, getting to sit comfortable in your mediocrity be challenged. And they don't want that. They don't want to have to give up a piece of something. They don't want anything like a conversation of reparations, which is why I was saying earlier that one bill that they've been pushing out there to say, any state that gets behind any bill that has any kind of element of reparations for Black Americans automatically will lose federal funding. It's going to be interesting to see that push its way in through Congress. But again, like you keep seeing that same movement. So yeah, they use all these phrases, indoctrination, to make it seem like somehow learning Black history is, the bad guys trying to punish and tarnish the children and make white children feel bad for being white. And it's like, as a kid who went to school in the 90s, okay, we watched all them same civil rights movies and everything. Them white kids I went to school with did not feel bad about being white after watching all the movies with Black folks get beat in the head with a baton. If anything, sometimes I felt like they felt empowered by the time we got to recess. Like, man. But it's funny, and to think that Sarah Huckabee Sanders had just released like a video maybe a year ago celebrating the Little Rock Nine and the strength that they had and how, again, lip service and symbolism, and we as Americans will stand together. Now all of a sudden you can't even learn about the Little Rock Nine. They already watered that story down too. They never like to talk about the one girl that fought back and got kicked out of school because she wasn't about to sit there and just have these students spitting in her face all the time. They don't ever talk about her. They push her out the story. Just Little Rock Nine. They marched and went to the school. Strong symbolism. And then you make 20 movies about it, right? And so, like, she just released that video. And so to see how she moves and operates. But you see how a system works. This was a woman who, again, Nepo child. Her daddy was a politician, or tried to be. Her daddy's a politician. It gets her in the door at the White House. She gets to pretty much be the communications person, do all the speaking and all the press conferences, lies every single day for years and years and years. And then she gets to become governor of a whole state with no real policy again. And then when you look at what she's been pushing, now they kind of gutted the child labor laws. They got that going on over there. They about to have them kids over there living like 1906, right? And now we're stripping and challenging education and talking about the kids are being indoctrinated and it's teaching folks to hate America. That's the other thing. I want people to understand, as an American, you do not have a duty to love America. That's not a requirement. And really, it seems like they only want to put that requirement on Black folks. Like they make us want to be grateful to be here. That's how they kind of move. Like it's always aimed at us. You should love America. There's no contract that says we have to love this country. I know when I did one of these lives, it was one. I think it was in response to one of these people that were saying, like Black Americans, it's time to go home to Africa. And I was saying how, I I hear that conversation. I have love for the distant cousins across the water, but for me, the United States is home. And somebody was like, United States ain't home because of how they treat us. And I was like, it didn't say home was happy. Didn't say it was a happy home, but for me, America's home. This is my lineage for however many generations to the point where I can't even trace it back. So yeah, this is home for me. Didn't say it was a happy home, but it's home. And so yeah, you just see the nonsense that's going on. But Arkansas, we see what's happening with Arkansas in education. It's happening in Florida. It's happening in all these different states. Like, it's nonsense, and they're gonna keep going. These dominoes are gonna just keep falling slowly but surely. All right, I'm gonna read a few comments and I'm gonna keep going. Sarah Huckabee Sanders tried it. I really, remember we used to light her up on this channel when she was still working at the White House. Hey, Bibby said, cut out all trash media for your feeds. I 100% agree. Like, you really have to be careful with how much you consume because it can be really easy to latch into stuff. Like, I remember, now this is a very, very big stretch, but I was really young at the time. I remember I was a freshman or sophomore in college. And this is when everybody thought the world would end in like 2012. Now at the time, it was like 2007 or something like that. But I remember I don't know what I read, but I was actually starting to believe it. It was starting to sound real believable. It was talking about all the planets. It was going to be the first time the planets were aligned this way and the planet Dimmerwood was going to come. And then I was like deep into this. And I was like, man. And then I had to like check myself like, wake up, really? But for like a good week or two, I was really like locked into this. Like, it's so easy for folks to sometimes get manipulated into stuff, which is why you have to really make sure your discernment is on point. Because I mean, literally all I did was read a few things, see like one video. All they did was put some music in the background to make it seem more official. And somebody was just talking with some confidence. And I was like, ooh, like, y'all heard about this? What we gonna do? Like, man. Anyway. All right. Talking about indoctrination. Sarah, if you don't sit down, and you know me and Sarah, let me see, because she and I ain't too far apart in age. Let me see. How old is she? See, remember how I said when you mind your business, you age well? She ain't been minding her business. Let me see something. Oh no, we ain't that close in age. Never mind. Changed my mind. We about 5-6 years apart. All right. Anyway. Then how is let me see. Exactly. Noble Valkyrie said, I'm over words like indoctrination, woke, and agenda. And a lot of times, like I said, people will always throw those random phrases when they can't carry the conversation, when they don't have range for the conversation, when they don't know what they're talking about. So you just throw out the blanket term because the blanket term can somehow dismiss the entire conversation and the entire argument. That's why people always use the race card term on us back when we were still pushing the narrative that the United States was post-racial, especially once Obama got in office. And everybody's like, yeah, racism is gone now. And so people would always throw the race card out there, right? It's race card. And even before Barack Obama got in office, they were throwing that term in the 90s, race card. I'm not going to pull the race card today. It's a way to dismiss the entire plight and the conversation that is trying to be had, right? Just throw it behind a blanket term. What was so funny, when I did my Kanye video, I don't remember which Kanye video it was because I've done a few, but one of these Kanye videos I did, I started talking about the Liberty City riots, right? So all these white folks came on there because, white people love them some Kanye too. And they're like, man, I came on here to see about Kanye and you went woke on me, bro. All right. Again, you didn't have the range for that conversation we were having on there. Whatever. Corey T, I like that quote. You end how you start, which is why we must remain knowledgeable of how it truly began. Again, and I always say history will repeat itself every single time when you don't challenge it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with knowing the past. Like, for me, I love all elements of blackness, even the things where we don't shine so brightly, and I still want to know about it and read about it and understand what happened and what was going on during those time periods. Even with our movements and our leaders, I respect a lot of the work that they did, but we have a lot of leaders that had a lot of nonsense going on. And even with that, I still want to know what nonsense they had so I can understand, okay, well, these are the things to look out for sometimes. But the idea of just wanting to just sugarcoat and brush over and create only one narrative that just makes you look like the superhero and everything, that's not going to fly. Not going to fly. They need a new phrase too. I'm tired of hearing woke every 5 minutes. I'll be ready to punch somebody in the throat every time. All right, keep scrolling down. Timoni 78. The elders used to say, just go off, or don't just go off what your teachers tell you. Research information for yourself. I think those administrators fathom that blacks would become awakened of the past. And that's what we've been saying on this channel for years. Your education should not just come from one source. And I keep saying, for those who have parents, or those who are parents who have children, do not just expect everything to be taught to your children at the school. One of the biggest beefs I had when I did work in youth development was a lot of times you had some parents who just thought everything was supposed to be done by the school. And the parents would have no connection to what was happening. It's just, teachers need to do their job. Teachers need to do this, need to do that. There's only so much that's in a curriculum. Like, I think, again, for me, education is one piece of it is what you get in, a more formal setting, but a lot of it is also life. A lot of it is what you learn from experience. A lot of it is what you learn from people who've lived it, right? And I think when we kind of limit ourselves, because I think there's some people who just don't even want to learn. Like, there's some people who, once they're done with school, they're done. That's where everything stops. They just, whatever they learned after 12th grade, there's nothing there. They just choose to not learn. And I feel like you're always going to want to be in a position to learn something new. The world continues to evolve. You have to evolve with the world. Otherwise, you are stuck. Then you look crazy. But I guess in the United States, a lot of the crazy people ended up in office because they're stuck in their ways. And so they're fighting to go into office to ensure that those ways stay the way that they are and that things don't evolve. Crazy, right? Everything comes back full circle. All right. Thank you, Coco Press, hopping in to send support, catching the playback later. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you, Lexi 192. All right, scrolling down. I'm almost to the bottom, y'all. Turtle Mitch said America ain't racist because of black president. Oh, yeah, that was our reparations, according to Mitch McConnell. He said, yeah, black Americans, they got their reparations when Obama was put into office. I was like, Lord, they're just some terrible people. Give us the bare minimum. Somebody said Calvin talks so fast like a cute chipmunk. I really be trying to slow down, but it's like my mind is like racing and I'm trying to get everything out before my mind changes into something else while I'm still talking. Yeah, I'm in my pocket when I start talking faster. And another thing, which is why, to be honest, I actually prefer, I like doing the lives more because I can get more information put out there and be done with it. But I prefer to do the pre-made videos because I can really sit and ponder in my thought. And if I don't like something, I can go back and edit and clean it up. I think my pre-made videos are a bit more polished than these lives, but the lives are fun. We can chop it up. All right, we have to keep going because I got a few more people to light up on here. Don't be making fun of me in my 2012. I was really latching on to that. But this was like an 07, 08. By the time 2012 came out, I was good. But I was really believing that for a quick minute. Had me shook. Y'all have been going in. All right. Very true, Calvin. All right. Okay. Oh, Edward Blum. God. All these people are so terrible. God. I want to be like whatchamacallit, Diane Carroll on Different World when Wayne interrupted the wedding to get to Whitley and she died, just die. Like, that's where I'm at with a lot of these folks. Like, just die. God. Or what is that, Addams Family, the sequel? When Wednesday, the brother kept giving all them hell at the camp. And then the two camp counselors were like super bubbly, but they had lost it. They're like, don't you guys just hate that? Don't you wish they would just die? Like, all right, anyway, Edward Blum. So remember, this is the guy we talked about on a few lives. I'm getting tired of talking about him, but he's just doing so much damage. You got to keep bringing him up. This is the guy that ran for office in Texas back in the 90s, lost, and then has been on a vendetta against black people ever since because black people didn't vote for him. And so he tried to change the voting laws in Texas at one time, didn't go too well. He's one of the reasons why Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act was stripped later down the line. He is the person that influenced Abby Fisher to go and try to sue to gut affirmative action when she didn't get to University of Texas. He's also the reason why affirmative action has been gutted in modern times. He's the one person who got behind all that. He's also the person that's suing against the black venture capitalist companies that had the special programs that would, give $20,000 to black entrepreneurs that were black women. Apparently that's anti-American and racist against everybody else who's not black. What about the white and the Asians is what he said. And so I was reading, let me see. Because he is still at it. He got most stuff he wants to do. He said he ain't done with us. All right. The conservative activist who got Harvard to change its affirmative action policies and is suing law firms over diversity fellowships says he plans more legal actions against race-based programs. Edward Blum, the activist, I don't know why they're calling him an activist. Well, whatever. Created the American Alliance for Equal Rights. Remember how I said a lot of times, anytime you see something with like freedom, liberty, justice, a lot of times these are some scam little companies that are rooted in white nationalism. A lot of times, which has filed lawsuits asking courts to bar diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in venture capital and legal industries. Programs that are open to only certain races are illegal and unfair, Blum said via email on Thursday. The lawsuits come amid an ongoing effort to challenge DEI efforts across a number of industries, a backlash that has picked up momentum since the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in June that universities can no longer consider race in admissions. In addition to the AAER actions, a group of former and current journalists this week sued newspaper company Gannett Co. alleging reverse race discrimination. And last month, 13 Republican state attorney generals warned the chief executive officers of several large employers against introducing race-based practices in hiring and contracting. On Tuesday, AAER filed complaints against two law firms, Perkins Coie and Morrison Forrester, over their diversity fellowships. Blum's group wants the courts to permanently end these programs, which are open to members of historically underrepresented groups in the legal profession. Earlier this month, AAER sued Fearless Fund, an Atlanta-based venture capital firm, over a program that awards $20,000 grants to Black women who own small businesses in the U.S. To evaluate a policy's fairness and legality, Blum said via email, he recommended a shoe on the other foot test. In the case of the Fearless Fund, would a different venture capitalist fund require that only white women are eligible for its funding and support be fair and legal? In an open letter to support Fearless Fund signed by more than 70 firms, the organizations noted that Black women receive less than 1% of all venture capital funding. We vehemently oppose this lawsuit. Going back to what I said, cementing and locking things in. Black women getting a freaking 1% of anything is too much for him. Imagine that. And so what's also happened now, and this is why I think it's really important that as future policy comes in regard to any policy that is in support of Black people, it really has to also have a conversation around lineage and also have a conversation around systemic actions that have taken place and how they've affected those specific groups. There has to be some element that showcases, here's a group of people, because this group of people existed as they did, another group of people hated everything about them, created policy and ensured that this group of people would not have what it is that this group had. Generations had passed. This group ended up with a whole lot. This group has nothing. And now there are policies to support this group to help them get back on their feet. It literally has to be worded that way because now they're going to play this tit for tat game and go after any and everything that was created to somewhat give people a leg up in a system that was unfair, right? And so again, like I said, when white people are pissed off, everybody suffers. Punitive entitlement. Exhibit A. This man lost an election 30 years ago and still mad. Everybody got to suffer, right? Everybody. He's going to find everything he can find. It's going to get to the point where, watch, they're going to start reversing the toys, right? Like Barbie, they ain't going to make the black Barbies no more. That's going to be a problem. They're going to get rid of those soon. Give it a minute. Crazy. But no, it's just, it's crazy. Like a lot of his stuff is all reaction, no context. So again, the idea of talking about putting the shoe on the other foot, context is important in that. Yeah, if you're talking about shoe on the other foot in modern times, you can try to make that argument, but in order to make that argument make sense, you'd have to go back to the origins of where that argument even started and what initially happened to get to that point, right? And that's the thing. People want to erase all of the wrongs that have happened to Black America back through policy. I'm not even just talking about feelings. I'm not even talking about the Klan showing up and calling you the N-word. I'm talking about going into a neighborhood, having the money to buy a house, and they tell you you can't buy the house because you're not allowed to live here. I'm talking about going to a hospital and they tell you, oh, we know you're in labor and this is a really high-risk pregnancy, but we don't serve Blacks at this hospital. You got to go to the other side of town. Then the baby doesn't make it. I'm talking about those Black women in North Carolina that were sterilized after having children by the state. Like, that's the stuff I'm talking about. I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about the actual policy. I just saw a clip from Valdosta University with the baseball player, the Black player with the locks, and the coach wouldn't let him on the team because his hair was too long. The Black player went and cut his hair, cut it short. And the coach still was like, nope, not doing it. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about here, where somebody's existence limits them from participating in an experience, right? Limits them from just being able to exist as they are. Like, that's the issue. So I think you have to almost have that language in there. If you just start saying, we're going to do this for Black folks, whatever, they're going to come and get this every time. This is, like I said a million times, this is why Black farmers lost the first lawsuit they had in 99, where they said, USDA left us out because we were Black and it was racist. But there wasn't a conversation about lineage, and there wasn't a conversation about how that was detrimental to that collective and why black farmers were left out. So in this modern time, when we got to the space where now we can talk about, yeah, well, these were black farmers that were left out of the USDA because of this, that, and the third, heirs property, eminent domain, all these different things. Now you actually have leverage to stand on. Biden administration says, you know what? Yeah, y'all had a really effed up deal. So you know what? Here's $4.5 billion. But then even in that, we saw what happened. White farmers said, wait a minute, we want some of that money too. We were disenfranchised. Now we know the Trump administration just gave us money and left them out, but we want some of what they got too. Like, that's the United States. So again, a lot of these folks, again, are really like going tit for tat. All reaction, no context. And they get to just be the loudest ones in the room and just say any and everything, and people get behind them. And this is a man with money too, right? So yeah, pay attention to some of these folks. Like, really pay attention to your local politics and what's happening and what's on the docket. Because there's a lot of nonsense going on. Like, man, and like I've said, you have a lot of people who are agents of chaos who are kind of just starting to show up, right? I'm going to pause because I want to continue on that point, but I'm going to read a few comments, and then I'm going to get to that. I'm going to take a breath and slow down a tad bit as well. Solitary Man in Black said, a man called Joanne Reed and Jamel Hill divisive as they discuss racism regarding Jacksonville. The white conservatives are going to push the false narrative that the Alabama brawl pissed them off. And going back to what I said earlier, if a fight at a dang dock where nobody has died get somebody so enraged that they go and start shooting random bystanders in a totally different state that has nothing to do with what happened in Alabama, then yeah, the weight is not on black people. That's on white rage and white aggression. White folks gonna have to get themselves together, not be so sensitive to starting mess and then getting their butts handed to them. Like, y'all started that whole fight and then lost and got mad. Yes, reverse discrimination. I said the same thing, Jamiri, in 2010. They got again, even the phrase reverse discrimination, again, all reaction, no context. How do we even get to a place where there was discrimination? White America decided everybody else was a problem. Let's make life harder for them. Now people try to climb and pull themselves out, and there's a problem with it because they're not included in that as well. Jesus. Mm-mm-mm. Somebody said we need more black. I need my glasses. Statisticians. I think what we need. Well, I agree with that. I think we need more. We need more black media, and I mean like real black media, not the bought out stuff. I think there's some platforms that are out there, but I think there needs to be a lot more black media. And I'm talking like real conversations that people that really go and dissect. I mean, like economists, doctors, all these people that like, have expertise in these different fields, and like specifically, have these platforms to share their expertise in their specific fields and how it affects Black America. I think we need more of that, definitely, because I just think there's definitely a disconnect with what we are being fed in mainstream media versus what reality is. Um, y'all in here fighting, Lord. I ain't jumping into that one. Y'all go ahead and duke it out. I ain't running up my blood pressure. Somebody said, "What do I think about Vivek Ramaswamy?" He's next on the docket to get dragged. I'm about to get into him. I'm like, I got some words for that person. It's loud and wrong. Exactly, Kiwi, loud and wrong. Just as I was saying it. All right, we got to keep it moving. Avocado Queen said, but why stay in an unhappy home? It's kind of staying in an abusive relationship where you will continue to be gaslighted and deep down knowing feelings will never change. Well, the thing about an unhappy home, you can always change the context of the home. Like for me, I have nothing against the continent of Africa or any place in the Caribbean, but I just have no desire to move to those places because that's not where I'm rooted, right? And so it's kind of like what I said on a few lives ago, where it's kind of like when you move out of your parents' house and then you've been on your own for 20 or 30 years and you have your own home, your own family, you've created your own everything. It would be like telling somebody who's 30 years out of their house with their own family and everything, move back to your hometown. And you're supposed to leave everything that you now know is home and what you've kind of created and go back to something that you don't recognize. And then you go back to that home. You don't know the neighbors because those aren't the same neighbors that you would like. It's just a different space. I mean, everybody I think has free reign to do what they want to do. There's a lot of folks who are like, yeah, we're getting on the ships and we out, we flying. There's a lot of folks who, yeah, hey, do what you got to do. For me, like I said, my lineage is rooted here, has been, right? And I just have no desire to leave the United States. Now, I definitely love the idea of like traveling and going to these places, or having really good friends in a lot of these countries and hanging out and staying for a week or two. But this is home for me. Like when I think of like there's just certain things I'm just always going to love about being in the United States. The United States is a bunch of nonsense, but the Black collective experience in the United States amongst Black people is a great one. When I'm talking about amongst us, what we do with each other, I'm not talking about how we're treated, but us amongst each other. There's just certain things that I feel like we built so much. So why throw it all away just because the cuckoo folks are going to be cuckoo? The world, and again, the world is already terrible no matter where you go. You're going to run into problems wherever you go. And I think one of the challenges that I think we have to be very considerate of as Black Americans living in the United States, if we choose to move to somewhere in the Caribbean or somewhere on the continent, is that we cannot go there with the luxury of thinking through the lens of how Americans operate and then expecting everything in that country to respond or act in the way that we want it to based on our own privileged experience in the U.S. We're not really privileged here, but there are privileges we do get living in the United States. It's not a whole lot, but my biggest fear is sometimes I hear people say, I'm going to go, I got all this money, I'm about to buy me all this land over here and do this and do that. And it's like, some folks are almost plotting to go over there and colonize what's over there. It's not a good idea. You have to respect what they got over there the same way, respect what I got over here. But again, everybody has their own free will to do what they want. But as for me and my house, this is home. And it's like, we're going to make this home work. We're going to make it work. So, if we got to bring in an exterminator, get a few roaches up out of here, get the rats out. We got to redo the foundation. We got to do it. And it might not even come to what I need it to be in my lifetime, but maybe if we put it in the work now, it might help the next generation. Who knows? But yeah, right now I'm not in a space where I want to leave at all. And it's nothing against those countries. I think they're all great places, great people. I got friends from all across the diaspora, but for me, home is home. Like, that's where I'm at. All right. Plus, if I leave, I'm taking a percentage of what my folks built. So I'm taking one of them pillars off the White House with me. And you better hope it don't collapse. But let me stop. All right, let's get to Vivek. Yeah. Let us get to Vivek. Um, okay. All right. Boom. Vivek. So like I said, there's a lot of people who I feel are agents of chaos. Now, I'm not sure where Vivek showed up from, but somebody's paying him off because I ain't never seen somebody blow up this fast. But what I will say, and folks are going to get mad when I say this, but I said this before and I don't take it back. I've always said a lot of times, for some people who migrate to the United States, whether it be their parents or whether they're first gen, there's a lot of people who come to the United States to be white. All right. They don't come to the United States to contribute to society and, make America the country it could be. They want what they see as prosperity, usually through a lens of whiteness and what white people have. And so a lot of folks come here and they will erase their entire identity, their entire lineage, forget where they come from, latch onto white nationalist talking points, latch onto white politicians, white movements, if it means that they can get a piece of the pie at the expense of everybody else. Vivek is that to me. He is Bobby Jindal 2.0. Remember Bobby Jindal from Louisiana? Same kind of energy, right? And so what was interesting, I saw some interview where he was blaming what happened in Jacksonville on politics. Like, yeah, we've just become a very, I wrote it down. He said, we become a racialized culture that we've created in the last several years. There's no racialized culture we've created at all. Like, the culture has always been there. White folks just got more confident with their nonsense. Like, the thing is, people keep trying to paint this as a both sides argument. Like I said earlier, there is no both sides to a conversation on racism. One group has done the offense. The other group is tired of it. They're calling it out. They're fighting somebody going to change this mess. That's where it's at. But they like to sit here and latch on to these points and try to make it seem like black folks are a part of the reason why, because we want to celebrate ourselves, or we just exist. We like to celebrate our blackness, or there's a few too many of us on TV now. Like, that's some nonsense. And then he also said that, which I found very interesting, he said all of this began at the last few embers of racism, or he said he said all this craziness began as the last few embers of racism were burning out. Now, see, this is how I know, again, he's just saying anything. The last few embers of racism weren't burning anything because there weren't no last few embers of racism, because I'm trying to figure out when was that moment, right? People like to try to say it started with Obama and he became divisive. But again, like I've said before, Obama, in my opinion, really straddled the fence when it came to race. He played it very safe. He did not like talking about a whole lot of stuff that was too black because he knew it would piss off white America. The one time he actually said a little piece of something was Trayvon Martin, when he said, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. White folks flipped. Oh my God, how dare he say such a thing? Oh, like, lost their minds, right? Lost it, right? Barack, to me, again, he played America's president. So be it. I never saw Barack as somebody who was going to be like the savior to Black America, and he was going to be, call everybody out and we going to protest with the black. That wasn't going to be the kind of politician he was. However, white America was so offended at just the fact that him being in office, and the fact that his black wife was in the White House, and her black mama was in the White House, and their black children were in the White House, and even the dogs were black, right? And the one part of the dog that was white on the other dog was the underbelly. That's the part that scrapes the floor. They were pissed off, right? And so you started seeing all just pretty much what people thought was, I guess, the progress in America in regard to race just all disappear real quick, right? So I'm trying to figure out what embers that he saw burning out. We've never been in a space where racism didn't exist in the United States. The racist policy has always been there. The racist politicians have always been there. Everything has just evolved and formulated into what we call our new norm, right? And the problem is he bought into that same nonsense of post-racial, right? Post-racial, something they started trying to push around in the 1980s. We're a post-racial society. We're post-racial. Everybody's all good. We're all kumbaya. Hands across America. We can all do it together. Everybody come stand together. We'll be one big giant rainbow, right? Meanwhile, politicians were still doing what they did. White America was still voting the way that they did. Police were still killing everybody the way that they did. The judicial system was still the judicial system. Everything that we saw happen through policy was still happening. It just wasn't in the forefront. There weren't conversations about it, and social media didn't exist. Now that social media is out, you see how people really feel things are more in the forefront. Barack gets in there. People are like, this will never happen again. Let's put in the most outrageous candidate we can put in there. Again, Trump, response to Barack Obama. Imagine going from one extremity to the other. Well, not even an extremity. One that's kind of sitting in the middle, safe, likable, pretty much somebody that can kind of get along with everybody to an extent. I do got beefs with the drones in Syria, and I do got beefs with everything international in regards to war and killing everybody. But in regard to the image that Barack Obama presented, and a lot of the policy that he tried to push in a lot of times it was something that would somewhat kind of be what I call everybody policy that stabilizes the country. Maybe not necessarily policy that is specifically for specific groups of people, but more so policy that is what you call stability. For white America, that was too much. We get Trump, get the crazy one, right? So I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. But again, like, for me, somebody like Vivek is the face of racism doing its job, where he is bought into all of the nonsense, and he's going to play that role if it means that he can come up. Because if you notice, he has just said any and everything that's out of pocket that you can think of in the last 2 weeks, because he also recognizes that he is not white. And he recognizes that in order to get backing from white America, he has to sound just like them. If you close your eyes and listen to him talk, he sounds like a white conservative. You would think that that's Rush Limbaugh out there talking, right? You would think that that's Don Imus out there doing the talking. You would think that's Rudy Giuliani out there doing the talking. Lindsey Graham, Jim Jordan, he sounds just like all of them, latches on to any and everything, says a lot of things that are not true and just says, believe me. I believe it, it's true. It's like, remember the interview where he was arguing with Don Lemon about what was offensive to African Americans? Like, how you go sit here and tell a black person what's offensive to them? Like, that's the kind of nonsense where he tried to somewhat restructure the entire narrative of the black civil rights movement and somehow give credit to the NRA for black people having a few rights. Like, this is the nonsense we're talking about, right? And so this is somebody who has erased his entire identity in order to climb, right? He wants to be Trump 2.0. And so, again, he's latched on to whiteness. And it's so funny because he comes from a place that has a caste system. Like India, we already know India has that whole caste system and how people are treated. So you would think that he would understand the plight of different folks, but he doesn't. And again, the other issue is you have a lot of people who come to the United States or their family comes to the United States. And a lot of people do not understand the plight of Black America. They don't know our history. They don't know anything. They think they know what's good for us, though. They think they know what we need to do. And now that we're in this space where they're also now trying to gut history and act like things didn't happen and ban books and shut down libraries. We saw what happened in Texas where they're going to get rid of the libraries in the school and make them detention centers for the students that misbehave. Like, all of this is intentional. So now you have people who are a generation or two in who have no reality of how the United States has worked, who have no reality of really what has happened to Black Americans. They know about slavery. They know, that it wasn't that great for us in the 50s and 60s, but they don't know about policy. Ask them to explain redlining, they look at you like you're crazy. Ask them to explain why Black people were left out of the New Deal, they look at you like you're crazy. Ask them to explain why Black people weren't a part of the GI Bill for years, and they look at you like you're crazy. Ask them why Black people were taxed at higher rates in the 1920s than white folks, and people look at you like you're crazy. Ask them about all of the discrepancies that have taken place in regards to policy aimed at disenfranchising Black Americans, and they don't have an answer, right? And so and again, that's stuff he doesn't care about because, again, he is trying to climb. He wants to get into that space. And so getting into that space means he doesn't have to really care about Black America because Black America is not going to be the demographic that gets him in the door anyway. And so he's running on his campaign, trying to be the cool guy, rapping the Eminem song because, Eminem is safe enough for white Americans. White folks be hating rap music because they think it, tarnishes the kids, but they'll get behind him doing some Eminem. So yeah, he'll go to a rally and start rapping Lose Yourself because that's supposed to make him, that makes him cool. He's one of the cool ones. All right. Kind of like Amy Poehler on Mean Girls. I'm a cool mom. Like, same nonsense. And the thing is, he's only going to become more performative as time progresses. Like, the thing is, because he is not rooted in his own actual identity and he has to latch onto somebody else's, his goalpost is going to move wherever that identity goes. So, unfortunately, he's about to be on a roller coaster ride because he's going to go wherever he gets pulled and where he gets tugged. And that's one of the flaws that exists with a lot of people who are either Black or brown or whatever population that they come from that latch onto white nationalist talking points and try to win over a white vote, and they end up trying to erase themselves to climb up, and they never usually even make it through the door anyway, right? Herman Cain literally died playing this nonsense game, and Trump didn't even go to the funeral. Trump wanted to push the whole thing that COVID wasn't a real big deal, and it is what it is. We're overreacting, so be it. You're watching all these people die, and Herman Cain's one of the main ones. Yeah, it's a hoax. All right, then he died from it. Trump didn't even go to the funeral. Not even a tweet. And remember, Trump used to talk Trump got a tweet about everything. I think today on whatever platform he has, he was talking about some golf game he won. Trump got an opinion about everything. Herman Cain dies, dead silence. Right? You got what's his name? Harrison Floyd right now, the one that's still locked up from all the Georgia stuff. I ain't seen no Harrison Floyd comments. Silence, right? Now you got Nikki Haley. She doesn't even use her real name. She's being pulled on the journey. Now she's trying to rebrand and act like she's not a terrible person, like she hasn't pushed all this horrible policy in South Carolina. But now that she's running for president, she's trying to soften the blow a little bit. So she said, I'm going to make sure I'm the person that sounds like I got some common sense at this GOP debate. But again, she's not winning either. Sorry, they're not going to give you that pass. You don't get to go through those doors, right? Tim Scott, same nonsense. This man, again, getting pulled on the roller coaster, getting yanked up to all the journeys because he wants to do everything to separate himself and paint himself as, I'm one of the good Black ones. I'm one of the smart ones. Oh, racism isn't that bad. Yeah, we can work around it. Yeah, we got to not overreact. Yeah, da-da-da-da-da. And then we saw what happened, right? When they started saying slavery wasn't that bad and all these different things, and all these Black conservatives got pissed off and then got put in their place by the very white people they're trying to win over. Okay, keep playing those games. Like, understand what's going to happen with Vivek. I think he'll get some leverage, but I do think when it gets down to the wire, if it were between him and Trump, white America's going with Trump. They're going to remind him that he's not white. That's where we're at. He'll learn the hard way. And that's why I feel like a lot of these platforms, like the Breakfast Club, I look at very sideways because they give people like Vivek platforms. This is why I really don't F with the Breakfast Club. I don't F with the Shade Room. I don't really F with Hollywood Unlocked. I like drink champs, but they're starting to lose me as well. A lot of these platforms I really don't like because they end up giving these people platforms and they try to paint them out to be like not as terrible as they really are. When I really started questioning like the Breakfast Club was when they had the Martin what's his name, Sha'Carri guy. That was the guy who bought the company that had the pills for people that for HIV treatment, and then he decided to hike the price up. I forgot how much, but it was like an astronomical price up with the pills, right? And then they had him on the Breakfast Club, and he gave a really terrible response as to why he did it, and then they just let it slide like it was cool. And I've seen him kind of do that where you can bring a lot of questionable people on the show. They get to just spew out any kind of nonsense and it goes unchallenged. And I think it goes back to that idea of trying to paint yourself to be above what you call, I guess, the Black collective. You want to market yourself as Black media, but then all of a sudden you endorse politicians and people that would have policy that's detrimental to the Black collective, all because you want to paint yourself to not be, a token to the Democrat Party. We understand the Democrats have their flaws, but at this point, understand this goes back to that conversation. We're not in a space where this should be a competition about who's standing on the tallest soapbox. At the end of the day, when we're talking about policy, what is beneficial to Black Americans and what is not? Why are you guys giving leverage and space to people who have no Black agenda, anything, never have? And I'm not talking about folks who show up right before the election with 2 pages talking about this is the agenda. No, we're not doing that either, right? I'm not talking about folks who have policy and name it and market it as something that's beneficial for Black folks, but it's really not opportunity zones, right? We're not doing that. So again, what's happening is people like a Vivek and them, they latch onto celebrity presence, celebrity endorsements, because it gives them some element of leverage and makes people say, oh, they must not be too bad. And sometimes I will say that some of these people, sometimes they may actually have a point or two out of the 2,000 wrong points that they've made, but they got 1 or 2 that are actually like, okay, actually I agree with them on that. And people will market and push that and say, yeah, he's speaking some sense right here. He's really on it. Yeah, I've been trying to tell people. I'm like, where's all these people that's been trying to tell folks? Because I'm trying to remember when I was told anything. I don't ever see these folks. These are the same folks that are like, y'all not ready for that conversation. I'm ready all the time. I'm always ready. And they don't ever want to have it. No, I can't even get into it. It'd be too much for you to understand because you already done sold out. All right, cool. All right, well, you stay over there in stupid land then since you know so much. That's the problem. Everybody wants to gatekeep information. You go and ask for information, they don't want to share it. You got to do your research. Well, apparently you did the research, so go ahead and school us. We're ready to learn, right? I will always remember I was at this event, and I think I told the story before, but there's this radio show I used to always go to. They used to host it at B Cafe. And so one time I remember I just asked, I was like, is there like an app that's out there that like highlights Black businesses, right? Or I was saying there should be one that's more universal. Before I could even say my full 2 cents, like they had already shut me down. Like, no, you should already know that. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, well, what are I'm not saying you got to do your research. And the point that I was trying to make before I was rudely cut off about one of again, I'm on the taller soapbox than everybody else in the room, so I'm going to do the most and be performative. The point that I was trying to make is, whatever the app or the website is should be as common as Google. Like in the same way folks know to go to Google right away when they want to look up something, in the same way folks automatically know if they got an iPhone to go to their maps when they're trying to get GPS, in the same way that folks automatically know to go to YouTube when they want to be entertained through something, that app should have that same kind of notoriety where it should be that well known. So yes, if we have dozens of apps that only pockets of people know about because folks want to gatekeep information, then are we really making any progress here? Or is this a competition of who has the biggest ego? And now going back to Vivek and going back to a lot of our politics, we're now in this space where you have a lot of people who are pushing narratives out there that are very dangerous for Black people collectively. But again, it's a conversation of inflated ego, and maybe they got 1 or 2 talking points that is actually valid, but everything else is a problem. But because those 1 or 2 talking points got somebody to connect, now all of a sudden they want to start a whole movement and paint everybody else to be crazy and gaslight the hell out of everybody. Like, I'm sorry, a lot of these platforms are not Black media. The Breakfast Club, to me, should specifically just be for entertainment. If you're taking them seriously with anything else, there's a problem. The Shade Room, I don't know why it exists, but it is what it is. I purposely always put the Shade Room in my hashtags on this channel because I'm like, if anybody needs to come and see my content, it's the folks on the Shade Room, right? So yeah, Vivek, we don't see how this goes, but yeah, he's doing what you've seen a lot of people who are not white do when they want to get into those white spaces, sell themselves out, erase their identity, latch onto whiteness, try to pretend to be one of them. But like I've said before, you're only going to get so high because when it comes to those spaces, when you are not white, there's no glass ceiling for you. There's a cement ceiling. So yes, you can jump on all the white talking points you want and you will get there faster, but you're going to get to that cement ceiling that you can't get past. Like, it stops right there. They're going to remind you of who you are and what place you're going to be in. All right. This is why you see people like Candace Owens and all them move real funny. They know which conversations to jump into and which ones not to. They know their roles. All right, I've said a lot. I'm gonna pause. I think that's our last heavy story, and then yeah, kind of. We'll get to some of the lighter stuff. I try to get all the heavy stuff out the way first tonight. All right, thank y'all for rocking with me too. This is a Sunday. I know a lot of y'all got to get up early and go to work tomorrow. Queen said Barack Obama was biracial. To white folks, it's still black. Like, I need y'all to understand, the white folks only want to delineate the conversation of like biracial and multiracial when it means that it's a benefit to them. And Coulter tried to do that with Barack Obama, where she was saying like, when Halle Berry won that Oscar, that was a win for white Americans too. Like, they pick and choose when they want to acknowledge people being biracial or when they want to put them in the black box. White America saw Barack Obama as the N-word every single day. That's what they saw him as, even though he technically was, yes, biracial. They pick and choose when they want to acknowledge people's existence. Billy Flood said, Malcolm Gladwell, Black Like Them, great article on how Black immigrants thrive from white privilege over Black Americans. Let's see. Christine said, pro-Black does not mean anti-everyone else. Yep, exactly. That goes back to the point I was making earlier. Again, for some reason, when you center yourself in everybody else's business, you think when folks celebrate themselves, it's an attack against you. So again, when Black folks celebrate themselves, it's a problem with everybody. It's a problem. I get like, here we go. Oh, I forgot about that Poison Ivy. Yep. But then he stole Barack's whole word flow, word for word, bar for bar, in my Soldier Boy voice. I cackled when Chris Christie called him out. I did catch that. I forgot about that. Yeah, like they're playing. That's the thing that I find funny. They'll do all these stupid things and then still borrow. Like, I always laugh at Virginia's governor Youngkin, how he literally stole an entire campaign commercial from Warnock with the dog. Warnock had the commercial about, oh, next you're gonna say I don't like dogs, and he's walking the dog. Fast forward a year later, when Youngkin was running for governor of Virginia, they're gonna say I don't like dogs. I was like, y'all can't even be original with the thievery. Like, can't do nothing right. Can't even steal right. Man. All right, let's see. Yeah, somebody's paying Vivek off. I don't know where he came from, but yeah, somebody else posting all his previous like political activity and stuff, and it's not really a whole lot. He wasn't even voting until the last election, so I'm like, all right. Mm-hmm. Somebody said Republicans will never elect Vivek. If it gets to a point where Trump is not eligible, I still think they put DeSantis over Vivek. They put DeSantis over Vivek. I think Vivek is like fourth in line. If Trump were somehow not allowed to become the GOP candidate, right? Vivek still has to stand in line at least behind DeSantis. At least he's gonna be at least third or fourth in line, but he's definitely not their front runner. They'll put him out there if they have to. They don't want him, but he's saying all the talking points they want to hear. But he's gonna run into problems in the general election. Anyway, Tyler Hackner, I agree. Right now, we need actual policy, not symbolism, which I do want to get to because somebody had asked me about the march. The thing that made it very interesting, because I didn't go, they had the 60th commemoration of the March on Washington yesterday, which was crazy because, while the march is happening, meanwhile in Florida, they're shooting up the Dollar General. I've always had my opinions on symbolism, and for me personally, I just felt, and this is not to take away from those who wanted to celebrate and have that element of camaraderie where people come together and share great memories of the march and highlight the greatness of what was that march. To me, I went to the 50th commemoration in 2013, and the United States, in my opinion, is more chaotic now than it was in 2013. And for me, the commemoration is cool, but that's all it can be for me. I don't see it as any element of progress. I don't see it as anything that really made a difference between today and tomorrow. And that's not to take away from the march, but I'm just saying, like, to me, it's symbolism. And like I've always said, symbolism I'm only attached to once you've already won, once you've won the fight, once the fight is over, or at least when you're winning the fight. And then you can have the symbolism and say, look where we've come from. I love all that. Like I've done a video on that. I talk about that whole narrative of, pretend you're on a train. And at the end of this stop, if you can get to your destination, the destination is this place that has everything you've ever wanted. I'll speak for like Black people collectively. Everything Black people collectively have ever wanted. Like pretend at this destination, there's liberation, all the rights have been made in regards to the wrongs that were created. The generational wealth gap disappears, and now we're where we're supposed to be. Conversations around incarceration, healthcare, all of those things, like every wrong that has been created would have been right. Like everything is where it should be. You don't got to deal with anti-Black. Like pretend that is the end of the destination. For me, symbolism is you're on the train and this train is filled. We start in the back and you're going, and every time we get to a stop, each stop has a little piece of something that people like. So you get to one stop and it's, oh, okay, well, they're not giving reparations, but they're going to give a $1,200 check to everybody. And so people get off the train. Yeah, we made it. So you keep going. And then you get to another stop, and another stop is like, oh, they just had the first Black person go to Mars. And it's like, hey, it's great, went to Mars, but it doesn't really help Black people collectively. But people get off because of the symbolism. It's great. It's the first Black person to Mars. So then they get off. And you keep stopping. And so people keep stopping every time they get like some breadcrumb policy or a little piece of something that isn't what is at the end in the final destination. Because again, the final destination has everything we already want. But people are jumping off once they just get a little bit satisfied. A lot of that also comes from individualism as well, where again, that collective thought, it's not about the greater good of the people, but it's about what I can get for me and mine. And so by the time you get to that destination, there's nobody left on the train. Everybody hopped off. Everybody found a piece of something, and they didn't get everything they wanted, but they got a piece of something, and now they have to convince themselves that all is well because of that piece of something that they're holding on to, but everything else is still chaotic. And so with the march, again, I have nothing against people that did the march. I was not pressed to go. Plus, I get nervous around going like to big things like that because people are crazy at this point in time. Living in DC, you become very aware of folks always ready to destroy a good time. But again, I would hope that society moves further and then you get all these politicians who start giving lip service and everything. But it's like a lot of the policy y'all get behind is detrimental to everything those people marched about. So like, where are we going with this? So for me, yeah, symbolism, I'm good on. Man. Oh, I'm glad you pointed this out. Solidarity, Man in Black. The verified Twitter accounts will post anti-Black comments just for people to engage with them with quotes, replies. They are earning money from the revenue program. Screenshot them, mute them, or block. Which is true because Elon is so freaking annoying. But yeah, Elon had just started that program like a few months back where, with the people with the verified accounts, you start getting, more revenue when you have a lot of engagement. So now you have a lot of people who purposely just spew out anything because they know it's going to get people riled up. And so, yeah, like if you follow me on like Twitter, I don't argue with nobody on Twitter. Like that's in my bio. I don't argue. Like, see, and keep it moving. I'm not arguing on the internet because I got a whole YouTube channel where I can say my 2 cents if I feel some kind of way about something. But yeah, there's a lot of folks who, yeah, they are pretty much out there, agents of chaos, and they're getting a check for it. Right? Yeah, so Vivek, to me, mouthpiece for white supremacy. They play these games. Oh, and then remember, he said he wants to. What did he say? People 18 to 25 should have to take a civics test in order to vote. I'm like, if anybody needs to take a civics test in order to vote, it'll be the older demographics. If anything, these 18 to 25-year-olds be understanding what's up because they're living through a bunch of nonsense. Like, man. Let's see. Yeah, we don't have a lot of Black-owned media right now, sadly. Yeah, the shade room I just have a problem with. The shade room to me is just messy too. Like they'll do something like they'll post something that they know is going to bring out the most ignorant people, and then they'll just put thoughts in the they'll post like don't let them get don't let them get going with Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union's child. They'll post a picture of their child and then say thoughts. I'm like, why even open that conversation? Why open that to just have people go out there? Now you got people attacking somebody's kid. Like, come on, do better. Anyway, speaking of chaotic platforms, I'm not even going to say this platform, but I've been calling them out for a few years, and I'm I got a kick when I found out that they were demonetized. I said it's about freaking time. And that's all I got to say about that. You sit and play freaking stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And so yeah, I've watched them do a lot of nonsense and stupid things and wear Klan hoodies and make a mockery of black folks and tell us that we are not oppressed and get the F over it. And now look what happened. Sucks for you. All right. Anyway, let me see. What else was actually? No, I got another thing to say about that because then the black dude that's on there, he got on my nerves too. Because I'm like, as a black person, how can you sit there and let all that foolery go down and you don't ever call it out? You just ride along with it because you're trying to fit in for a check. Like integrity just goes out the window on some of these platforms, especially in the YouTube world. Like people will sell themselves out for a check. Like, okay, one of the things I get annoyed with, and one of my friends tells me I'm crazy. Like I don't even feel bad, but I probably get like 8 or 9 emails every week from like a company that wants me to sponsor their product on the channel. It could make me some great money. I don't have an interest in like stopping for 3 minutes and talking about butter or something. Like I mean, at least if you're gonna like reach out, let it be something that kind of mirrors the content I talk about, right? So, and that's not any judgment on anybody else who does it, because hey, it is great money. Like they offer you some great money to like, you know, do the sponsorships, but like you get so many of them. But then the problem is they want to dictate how you present your videos. Like I told y'all when I did Warner Brothers for the Fred Hampton movie, like, you know, cool. They gave me like $600 to do that. That was nice. But like, first they told me to talk about the trailer. Yeah, you can do it in one of your video segments. Just add it in. Okay, cool. I was gonna put it on my in the news, but they're like, we want to see like what your in the news topics are first. And so I sent them the topics of what the video I was gonna do. Oh, that's a little too raunchy. And I'm like, you're doing a movie on Fred Hampton. This would be the perfect, right? And so they were like, actually, can you just do your own like separate thing for it? And by then I was already starting to question the movie because I wasn't sure about the lead actor playing Fred Hampton anyway. I was like, I don't know about this. But anyway, so it's like, you know, by the time I went through the hoops and hurdles of, I was like, I will never do this shit again. So I'm cussing a lot tonight. But yeah, it's interesting. So it's like, but there's a lot of folks who like will sell out their integrity for a check. So I kept looking at dude on that platform where you don't check your co-host for these racist things that he's doing. And literally he's talking about your collective and you sitting there laughing along like it's all a game. Like, what a loser. So yeah, sucks for you. Enjoy. Where else is it gonna go with this? Actually, I'll read a few comments and I got like 3 more stories to talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of people on the internet that get on my nerves. Y'all know what platform I'm talking about. I'm not even saying who they are because they will not get any views from me. But I've had smoke for that one host for the longest. Poison Ivy said, I think we all celebrated. A win is a win. Oh, those Sharon said like those Republican black twins on YouTube. Oh, the Hodge twins. Yeah, they're interesting too because they definitely didn't have that same approach to their content when they first started. Like, interesting. Like I said, there's money in anti-blackness. Believe it. Tyler said, as much as I don't like traditional media, these YouTube social media streets aren't that much better. And I think the problem with YouTube as well, there's no way to vet a lot of what's put out there. There's a lot of people on these YouTube streets who just, and not even just YouTube, whether it, you know, be TikTok Live or Rumble or StreamYard or whatever else people use. There's a lot of folks out here just saying anything. And they have massive followings, massive. And it just makes me very nervous. There's one, I've mentioned this channel before, but I'm not saying who it is, but there's another channel that's a really, really big channel. And when I see the stuff that they put, I'm like, well, what is the end goal here? Because what? Like, why? And it scares me because I see so many people like latch onto those same ideologies. Like, it goes back, yep, I was trying to tell people. Tell people what? It goes back to, again, tell me about this conversation you were trying to have that I have yet to see you have. Like, there's a lot of folks out here who, again, money talks. Follow the money. That's all I'll say. I'm at a point where a lot of folks just take away the podcast equipment. Because, folks, if y'all don't have a podcast, can y'all mix it up? I don't need any more relationship podcasts either. Lord. I know I got a podcast, but at least mine is storytelling. I'm just telling y'all some funny stuff that happened back in the day. I ain't in here trying to piss nobody off. Man. Okay. Oh, I forgot about this part. Speaking of YouTubers, I don't normally call out other YouTubers, but I just saw this in such poor taste. So that Funky Dineva character, as you know, if you follow, he is on some show with Claudia Jordan and Al Reynolds. Al Reynolds is the guy that was once married to Star Jones, and they got some kind of show. But I saw this on social media, and somehow they started talking about Chloe Bailey, right? And this was in response to the sister, because there were rumors that the sister was pregnant, and they don't like who the sister is married to or something. They're having this conversation about Halle and Chloe, and somehow Funky Dineva, he goes on a spill about why he doesn't like Chloe Bailey, and you don't like her for her entertainment, so be it. But what I found interesting is then he goes on a spill about how if she didn't have any makeup, like she wouldn't be attractive. And I think he called her fat and some other stuff. And I was just like, at this big age of yours, what I find interesting, what did I write down? First of all, I want to make sure I get everything I said I was going to say. Actually, I don't even think I wrote nothing down for him. I'll just go off the dome. It's all the same thought anyway. But what I find interesting is like, that you have a massive platform. That you got all these people who watch your stuff. So why would you make an effort to not? It's one thing to not like an entertainer because you don't like their music or you don't like their performances or maybe you think their career should go in a different way. But when it turns into just a personal vendetta you have against somebody you never met, you look crazy. And then to sit here and talk about the girl's looks. Now, like I've always said, I don't normally talk about looks. Now, I know I talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders' eyebrow, but that's something she can fix. I just said Botox to push that back down. But again, I've always said all of us are just one car accident away from being an infomercial at 2 a.m. So you should humble down before you talk about somebody's looks. You know what I mean? And I think it's corny at this point in age to still try to make a brand of being like messy. I recognize that there was a point in time, especially in these YouTube streets, that in order to really get on for a lot of people kind of did the idea where they're like, I'll be the messy person. I'm gonna just really shake the table. I get it. Celebrity entertainment, it was a way to kind of get on, especially when you talk about like 2008 to about 2013, 2014. That's how a lot of people blew up, by tearing down celebrities all day. But at this point in time, society has kind of learned from those wrongs and moved into a different space. And so for you to still try to hold on to the old guard and try to move that, I just looked at that like very questionable. Like, you haven't grown at all. That's embarrassing. I get that you're on a bigger platform, but you would think at the age that you are at this point, I don't know how old he is, but I know he's older than me because he's been on these streets before I got on them. Like, you would think that, I'll just say this. I think people's content should evolve over the years. Like, every now and then I will go and look way, way back at one of my old videos. I'm like, oh, you did good. You came a long way. My thing is, if you're still doing the same stuff now that you were doing 10 years ago, exactly the same, there's no growth, then maybe you need to reevaluate your existence on these platforms. But the idea of being a black man and tearing a black woman down on a major platform, talking about she's ugly, she's fat, she's not cute without makeup. And like I said, you're one to talk. Like, imagine that. I just found that very interesting. And seeing that there's already kind of been like a Chloe hate train where people have really been just going in on this girl all the time. Understand, in the same way, y'all just don't really understand or know like what these people deal with behind the scenes. I think one of the challenges to being a famous person is you are at the mercy of everybody's opinion. And I think that kind of sucks. Even having YouTube is interesting. Crazy, I was just at an event and somebody recognized me from YouTube and she was asking like, how do you do this? Like, how do you, like, I think her name was Vernisha. Shout out to you, Vernisha. I think that was your name. How do you like put yourself out there to just be ready to like, catch the smoke if people don't agree with you? And I'm like, it does come with a territory, but the kind of smoke that I get is smoke with people who just don't agree with my opinion. It's not smoke with people who just hate me to hate me, or smoke with people who like want me to die, or they hate everything about me. It's a different kind of smoke. It's a smoke where we disagree on something. I don't like how you said this, Calvin. Calvin, I'm a little disappointed that you had this opinion. I thought you would have saw it this way. So yeah, I'm let down on that. Like, that's the kind of smoke I get sometimes. It's not a F you, I hate you with your big ass forehead kind of smoke. But like, I found that so flawed. And then I looked at Claudia and them real sideways too, because I'm like, y'all didn't even check them. Y'all just let them keep going with that. Like, for this to be a platform, I forgot what the name of the show is, but y'all are supposed to talk about all this empowerment and stuff. And then this is what y'all do. And then again, I don't know how old Chloe is. I think she's probably like under 25, but you pushing down like 45, however old he is. You're going after like a 20-year-old girl who's trying to find her footing in the music industry that's already not opening a door for her anyway. Like, do better. Like, that's so corny. So corny. It's the same way like when was that Joe Budden when he was talking about why he didn't like Meg, but it had nothing. And I think they were talking about the Tory trial. It had nothing to do with the trial, but he just, I don't know if it was him. I don't want to say misjudge, but one of them just went on this rant about how they hated Meg, didn't like Meg. And it had, when I say it had nothing to do with anything, it just came out unprovoked. I'm like, some of y'all really be sitting on stuff. Like, y'all true feelings be coming out. That stuff be creeping right out when the opportunity presents itself. Corny, do better. I don't normally like jumping into YouTube drama because I mind my business and stay on my side of the street. I ain't trying to jump into stuff with folks, but folks be doing a whole lot So freaking corny. All right, let's see. I'm called. Oh, maybe it was. Okay, it was DJ Academics. That one too, right? Like it's God, they just put anybody. They all be giving platforms to just any and everybody, any and everybody. And it's not saying that I'm perfect on this channel. I think I've had a few things that I've gotten wrong in the past, but I don't purposely go out of my way to just be spiteful and hateful and give you the wrong information on purpose. And if there's ever an instance where I have something wrong, I always go back and correct it. Like that's the one thing. Like man, I like that. Jay Lee said I get cordial smoke. Yeah, I get cordial smoke, right? Sometimes long time subscribers, if I really said something they didn't rock with, they'll send me a nice Instagram message or an email like, hey, I just want you to know this really rubbed me the wrong way, Calvin. I'm like, damn, okay. And then I always like, you know what? Actually, even though I might not even agree with what they said, I'm like, it makes you kind of feel good when people can tell you they're disappointed because that means they have an expectation of you to do better or they think highly of how you operate and they value what it is that you do. That's a good way to move on the internet. So, I always try to do better. What else did we talk about? Oh yeah, the Blindside people. I didn't get to talk about this because I was not in town. I do want to read a quick piece real quick, I think. Do I? I don't know if I wrote it down. Actually, I didn't. You know what? I'm gonna just go from the dome. Somebody was asking me my 2 cents about everything with Michael Oher, and I think that's his name, right? This is the guy from. Well, they made the whole movie about him, The Blind Side, and then he just recently found out in February that the family that had brought him in. These are the. I gotta Google these names. I forgot these people's names. Let me see. Where are these people's names at? Oh, the Toy. Is Toy Tuohy. Toy. We're gonna call it TJ. All right, you put a J after something you can't pronounce. TJ, the TJ family. He found out that he was not adopted by that family in February, and that they actually had a conservatorship around him, and he's alleging that they pretty much been controlling the money. He made nothing from the movie. They got a big check and everything, or a big check from the production studio and a few residuals and everything like that. And so he is suing. And there's a whole lot going on with that. And somebody was asking me because somebody was saying like, well, should he be grateful that they helped him and blah, 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 blah. It kind of goes back to that whole great white savior complex conversation. And then what was interesting, I was watching an interview of his, and the more I watched the interview, the madder I got, because I'm like, y'all really played in this man's face and painted him to be this really slow, stoic, not really alert, doesn't know what day of the week it is kind of character in the movie. Because in that movie, they made him just seem so removed from reality. Like he just didn't know how to do nothing. He's just, Big Mike. He didn't have a bed to sleep in. And then you find out like he was already playing football before he met the family and everything. I was like, oh, y'all tried it with this one. I'm anxious to see how this is all going to play out. But it goes back to, again, just that narrative. And this goes back to, again, just what was happening in Hollywood at that time, where you had a lot of great white hope flicks that came out, always paint the narrative of, making one group look super, super just great in everything they do. Because this is around the time The Help came out, because many don't burn chicken. You just got all these different movies that came out. But I was like, dang, that's kind of jacked up. What was I saying? Who was I talking to? We were talking about This Is Us the other day, because y'all know that's one of my favorite shows. But the more I watch the show, the madder I start getting when I start looking at like the logistics of the show. There's just always this obsession with painting Black folks to just be like just totally helpless, right? And so This Is Us, as much as I love the show, I think it's a great show. When you really dig into the story of Randall, it just pisses me off the more I think about it. So if you've seen the show, right, there's this family. It's a husband and wife. Mandy Moore plays the wife. She did a great job playing that role too, by the way. But there's the husband and wife. Mandy Moore is pregnant with triplets. One of the triplets doesn't make it. They deliver the other two. And then you get introduced to Randall's character. Randall is this Black child, right? It was a Black baby. The dad dropped him off at the fire station. And so each episode goes deeper and deeper and deeper. But the critique I always had of the show is they did a great job of challenging and questioning conversations of race. But there were some moments where I felt like they dropped the ball. One I always brought up was, with the kid, because they grow up and everything, right? The Randall has to deal with the fact that the grandparents are racist because, he's being adopted by a white family, right? So the grandparents are racist. And so when the mom, Mandy Moore, like kicks the grandparents out the house, she talks to Randall about racism, but doesn't talk to the other two siblings, which I always found so interesting. I was like, you should probably talk to everybody. But then what gets even interesting, because when we really talk about imaging, right? We already know, like with a lot of Hollywood entertainment, especially in these movies like Dangerous Minds, Freedom Riders, you always paint the white person to be the savior of everything. Freedom Riders, just write it in your journal. Hey, my best friend just got shot in the head yesterday. Write it in your journal. These very simple, lots of symbolism. Just write it in your journal. Dangerous Minds, the kids done told the lady, look, it's not even safe for us to get to school coming from the bus. And she cussed the kids out. There are no victims in this classroom. I'm like, wait a minute, they saying they can't, there's no safe way to get to the school, right? But anyway, going back to This Is Us, as you watch, the storyline was this. Randall's father had his girlfriend. Him and the girlfriend got addicted to drugs. The girlfriend ends up, I guess, having Randall, but somehow she dies. That's what we thought. And then he's so heartbroken, he can't even fathom the idea of raising a child. So he drops the child off at the fire department, and then he's adopted, right? And so that story runs, and for years, you're mad at Randall's dad and everything else like that. And then you find out over time that, one, Randall's mom technically never died. Like, she was actually alive. Like, actually saved her. But they made the dad so one-dimensional that he was so afraid of getting in trouble with the girlfriend overdosing that he just left and abandoned his own child, which I thought was a very one-dimensional approach to telling the story of somebody who battles substance abuse. I thought that was a very one-dimensional approach. So they already got to tarnish, Randall's dad. But then in the storyline, and mind you, they had it painted like he's the deadbeat dad. But then his dad came and found the son. Went to the house and wanted to, try to get in the kid's life when he was like 6 or 7. But the mom was like, no, I know what's best for him. You have, blah, 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 blah. And listen, I get that this becomes a very layered conversation because, yeah, when you start talking about adoption and parents coming back and forth, yes, it's a layered conversation. But the way that it's presented it's presented as if she knows what's 100% best for him. And I think what's interesting is at the point in time when the dad shows up, Randall was still really young. And I'm like, you didn't even give the decency to let there just even be an opportunity to just meet with the dad and give the dad an update, like nothing, right? And so eventually Randall finds out that the mom knew all along, and then they somehow centered it on the mama crying. She was so hurt that, she broke Randall's heart. So they had a whole episode about the mama crying and begging for forgiveness. I'm just like, man. But the show was interesting because it's like they used to always do a great job of covering and calling out the racism that existed. But then sometimes they would always go back to that great white hope story with Randall, and they would always paint it as if, without them, he would have never become what he became, because on the show he becomes like, I think a politician and stuff. I mean, that show used to have me stressed out, but it was such a good show. But sometimes Randall's storyline used to piss me off. So yeah, when I found out that the mom didn't really die, I hope I ain't spoiling it for y'all, but at this point the show been on for years, or went off years ago. Yeah, crazy. So going back to like The Blind Side, same thing. They painted it like he never had a bed. He didn't know how to do anything. And there's always that scene that gets on my nerves where she goes to the hood and goes to the dudes that are on the stoop and cusses them out. I forgot what she says, but something. I'm a something. And I'm a carrying member of the NRA and don't F with me or something. I said, what white woman is going to go to the stoop with a bunch of black men and say something like that? Because again, they already painted every black person in the show to be an aggressor. Even when, Michael's in the office with the social worker, the black woman who's calling out, like, you realize these people are bamboozling you and they're using you for a come up because they recognize that if you can get in the NFL, it's going to make them really rich. And they painted her to be a villain. They painted her to be the bad guy, right? And every black person in the movie, whether it was his original family, every time they went to his original neighborhood, they made it seem like it was just the worst of the worst. And the reason I question all this is because it reminds me of a post that the actual mom made. Let me see if I have it in here. I know I took a picture of it at some point. Let me see if I can find it. Where did I find it? She made this post on Facebook it was years ago. And this is the mom that Sandra Bullock plays. And it kind of goes to show that a lot of times people think they have good intentions and they are just as much of a problem as everybody else because they move in such a funny manner. Where is that freaking post? I know I got it in here. I'm going off the top of the dome, so I didn't have this stuff written down. Dang it, do I have it on here? I might have to bypass it and let it go. We might have to come to this another time. It might not be my ministry tonight. Found it. Ha! You bad. School me. All right. So she made this post on Facebook years ago, and some other YouTubers called this out as well. It's a picture of her and these two black teenagers at, I guess she has like a restaurant or something she owns. She says, "We see what we want. It's the gospel truth. These two were literally huddled over at a corner table, nose to nose, and the person with me said, I bet they're up to no good. Well, you know me. I walked over, told them to scoot over. After 10 seconds of dead silence, I said, so what's happening at this table? I get nothing. I then explained it was my store and they should spill it. They showed me their phones and they were texting friends trying to scrape up $3 for the high school basketball game. Well, they left with smiles, money for popcorn and bus fare. We have to stop judging people and assuming and pigeonholing people. Don't judge a book by its cover or however you like to express sentiment. Accept others and stop seeing what you want to see. And then this is I don't want to embarrass the kids, but I'm going to keep it way back here. And there's a picture of her with the two boys. And so what I found so interesting with that is she swore she was the hero in this. You saw two black kids minding their business, and your friend assumed that they were up to no good. Now, you being the person thinking that you were the good person, oh, I'm going to prove her wrong, that they're not doing anything wrong. You go and invade their space, sit all up in their business, tell them to spill it, and they need to answer to you because you said so. You're looking in their phone trying to figure out what they're doing, and now I guess they've gotten a pass because now they have met the expectation that you created for them. Okay, these are good ones, we're fine. And then you force them to take a picture together, and then you post it on social media like you've saved the world. Like, this is the nonsense. Like, what are you doing? So again, a lot of times people are well-intentioned or good-intentioned, but they don't even see the flaws in how they move. They don't even, the privilege is there. The white lens is there that they can't even see how their actions are offensive, right? And so I've seen the family's response to the lawsuit from Michael, and they're pretty much saying, you were heard, that, we saw him as family, a beloved family member, blah, 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 blah. And we only did what we thought was right. And, they're going to turn the tables and make it seem like he's only doing this because he's not in the NFL anymore and he's money hungry. And it's so funny to see how people move. And so I was just like, you really went to a restaurant, and you should have called your racist friend out, if anything. But no, you let that slide. So you let the friend keep the same, viewpoint and everything. And because you made a Facebook post, you fixed the world. Like, that's where we're at. It reminds me, one time in middle school, we were in PE. I think we used to have to do this thing called the 20-minute run, and you had to get 8 laps in 20 minutes to get an A. And so we had just finished, right? And so everybody's tired and stuff, we're sitting on the benches. It's like 4 or 5 of us. It's like all the black kids. And there was this one white girl she was one of them white kids that like hung with all the black folks and thought she was down. And so we talking about something, and out of nowhere, she like drops the N-word. Like, she's like, yeah, because I told them. And we all looked. Like, what? And at first we were like, did we hear what we thought we heard? Like, and so the day goes, like, none of us really say anything about it. We just look kind of, I would have said something now, but back then I was like 12, 13. I was like, okay. So we didn't say anything. But then we were talking about it like later on. There's this other white girl that goes to the school. She was like one of the white kids that hangs with everybody and feels like she's the activist and she must fight for everybody. And so we're like, yeah, what's her name? We weren't sure if we heard right, but we swear like she said like, she said the N-word, blah, blah, blah. And white girl got mad. What? So she goes over there. I think the girl's name was Rachel. And she's like, Rachel, did you call my friends a nigger? I'm like, what? That defeats the point. Like, you're doing the same thing. It was we were just like, never mind. Like, folks be thinking they're helping, they be in the way. Like, just don't worry about it. God. Did you call my? And she said it so loud with so much conviction, like she had been waiting for the opportunity to say that word. I was like, middle school. Let me see. What else was I going to add in here? Oh yeah, Sha'Carri Richardson. Yeah, good for her. I'm glad she's having a comeback story because a lot of folks we talked about her in the last video too, but a lot of folks was giving her smoke. All, no pun intended, but they're giving her smoke this time last year during those last Olympics and everything, letting that girl have it. That girl was given no mercy, no grace for everything that was happening in her life, and they made her public enemy #1. They talked about the girl's image, how she looked, how she spoke, and everything. So I love the fact that she's winning up all these races and medaling, and I love that clip where she didn't even want to talk to the media. No, thank you. And, folks got mad. They were like, she should have more poise. And I'm like, F all y'all, because y'all kicked that girl when she was down. The girl mama had just died. Y'all had all the smoke in the world for her and talked about how she was this and how she was that. So I am enjoying watching her win. I saw the U.S. men and U.S. women won like the 4x1 relays. I enjoyed all of that. She's having a great time. Good for her. I have no smoke for Sha'Carri. And so let her be herself. Good for her. I'm happy that she is getting her redemption story because I ain't like the way y'all treated her. Same way folks treated Simone Biles when she got, dizzy and couldn't do the Olympics and folks got all pissed off. And folks who can't even do a cartwheel had the most to say, yo, my God, what a waste. And I'm like, you already got a knee replacement on deck at the hospital in 2 months anyway. What cartwheel were you going to be doing? Relax, right? So, yeah, good for Sha'Carri. I love all of that. Bob Barker. Oh, yeah, he died, huh? Yeah, well, 99 is a decent age. I think if you can make it to the 90s, I don't even think people should be sad when you pass on because I think that's a blessing if you can live that long. It gave me flashbacks though, because when I think of Bob Barker, I always think of like being at my grandma's house. You know, grandma used to watch the stories, and she would watch Judge Mills Lane, if you remember that court show, and she would watch Forgive or Forget with Mother Love, and then yeah, Price is Right was always a go-to. She loved Price is Right, and so very very interesting. And you know, there's a show like it's interesting. So there's a town called Truth and Consequences, right? And that was a show that Bob Barker used to host before The Price is Right. I forgot what the name of the town used to be, but yeah, they literally named the town because Truth and Consequences was this really, really popular show way back in the day. And so the town renamed itself after the show, which I was like, that's really interesting. Like, imagine having a show and some people name a whole town after something you were a part of. But no, Price is Right was always a good one. Would I go on The Price is Right? I don't think I'm really good with pricing and stuff like that. I just be putting stuff in the cart, not paying attention, then be having an attitude when the bill be high. Plus, I know if I go on The Price is Right, and you know when they do that thing where like somebody bids, I don't know, they bid, I don't know, they bid something, and then the person after them bids $1 close to the matching price. That way, if the other person got it wrong, the person that has the dollar that's a point above or over or whatever gets the entire set. Like I've been fought somebody on this show. Like if I say 700, you better not say 701 or 7 or 650, 699 or however the game goes. I'm gonna have an attitude. Like man, but no, yeah, all right, Bob. And then I see that again, privilege in general. You got Seth, remember FyreFest guy. He is actually launching FyreFest 2. And look, the tickets are selling out. In my opinion, anybody who's fool enough to deal with somebody who's already showed y'all one time they didn't know what they're doing, that's your money you're losing. Like we've talked about FyreFest, but I guess the one thing he's done that's smart this time is he's put it a bit further out this time. He has a little bit more time to plan it, but I still wouldn't give him any money. And if anything, he needs to pay back all those people he screwed over in the Caribbean. And the fact that he will go back to the Caribbean and do the same nonsense. I hope somebody throws something at his head. I'm sorry. Like that's real effed up. You need to pay them people back all that money you took from them. You had people building stages and tents and stuff, and you didn't even pay the people, right? That's jacked up. And then skip town. Anyway, I think those are all my main topics. Perfect. So I'm gonna read some comments. I'm getting good at cutting these lives down because we were starting to tread into 3 hours and 30 minutes every night. I was like, all right, these are getting too long. So I'm gonna read some comments. We'll chop it up, and I'm gonna call it a night because hey, it's Sunday. Yay, back to work. Blindside. Let's see. Oh yeah, they just have so many white savior movies. The Green Book. I wish. I like the actor, but I hated the script of that movie. Like I didn't like Green Book. Y'all know I didn't like the Jesse Owens movie because they really made Jesse just clueless. I'm like, all you got to do is run. Y'all really make it. They made Jesse just so removed from reality in that movie. I was so mad. Like, just tell people's narrative. Everybody, you don't always got to be a hero and everything. It goes back to Hidden Figures, where there's that scene where, and it's such a great scene where Taraji like chews everybody out because they ask her where she was at. She tells them she was in the bathroom, but there's no colored bathroom at this part of the campus, and she has to go way to the other side. A beautiful monologue. And then they add that scene where he goes and creates the bathroom for everybody. Like y'all always got to lie and insert yourselves in reality. And it's not like, my God. Crazy. Jaguar 2 by Victoria Monet. I really enjoy that album. It's very nice. I even like the song with Earth, Wind, and Fire at the end. By the way, they were just here and I didn't go, and I'm so mad because well, I'm gonna tell you why I didn't go. Because y'all know I'm right by the arena, so it's nothing to just walk over there and go to somebody's show. But like I had been thinking about if I was gonna go or not, but it was a Lionel Richie and Earth, Wind, and Fire ticket. Lionel's cool, but I really only rock with Commodore's Lionel, and he got like 1 or 2 songs I like. All those soft not even R&B, those soft, easy listening songs he had between like 1980 to about 85, I ain't like none of them. So I was like, there's no way I'm sitting through Lionel Richie. No disrespect to Lionel. I love Zoom with the Commodores. That's one of my favorites. I love all his Commodore stuff, but his solo work I was never crazy over. So I was like, dang, man, do I want to go? I really want to see Earth, Wind, and Fire, but I ain't trying to sit through Lionel. And anyway, I kind of forgot the show was coming. And I was coming from lunch, or not lunch. I was picking up dinner because I came back from work, and I just saw all these people, like black folks, dressed up nice. I mean, because black folks, especially older black folks, black people over the age of 45, when they go to concerts, they dress up so nice. I mean, it was too hot for minks and furs, but they found the next closest substitute. They were wearing sheer and blazers that were real thin, where the wind would blow through the cotton, and pearls and all kind of stuff, and fedora hats and the feather. I was like, older black folks be cleaning up when it's time for a concert. And I'm like, what's going on tonight? I was like, dang it, it's the Earth, Wind & Fire concert. So I was actually gonna get a ticket but I was just gonna get like a nosebleed seat and sit way in the back for like $20 because they literally had tickets for $20. But I realized Earth, Wind & Fire was the opener and Lionel was the headliner. I was like, wait, and I think at that point the show had already started. And the thing that I've learned, black entertainers over the age of 60 start their shows on time. When me and my godmom went and saw the OJs and Gladys night, the show was supposed to start at 7. They were already cranking up Love Overboard at 6:59. I was like, dang, like me and my godmom was running to get to the seat. Like, dang, we couldn't get a soda. Like, Gladys was on time. So I knew Earth, Wind & Fire was already on the stage. And at that point, it was like 7:20. And one of my coworkers went. She was like, yeah, by the time she got there, Earth, Wind & Fire was already done. I was like, dang, that sucks. I'd have been so mad if I would have paid and then I missed Earth, Wind & Fire. But then I was also thinking, because I'm like, at this point, like Maurice just passed. Or not just passed, he's been gone for a minute, but like 2 other members have passed. I was like, man, is it even going to be the same? But maybe I might get to catch them another time. But that might have been my last hurrah for Earth, Wind & Fire. Knowing them, they might retire at this point. But, oh well. But no, Victoria Monet, I really like that project she has. It's really nice. Nice and smooth. It all flows. Oh, okay. It's pronounced Tui. That's their last name. All right. Tui. All right. Oh, Tui was stealing all the money. I know that. Corey T said, my thing was he was a well-known football prospect before they went to adopt him. See, and that was something they didn't really put in the movie. The movie made it seem as if he was sleeping on the sidewalk and they came and picked him up in the rain. He only had that one green shirt he wore every day and he walked real slow, didn't have no friends, didn't know what day of the week it was, and the gentle giant and everything. And would you like to come stay with us? Listen, Sandra, I rock with Sandra Bullock, though. I ain't gonna lie. She played the heck out of that role, but that role pissed me off every time I saw it. Big Mike. I'm like, oh, God, here we go, right? And so, yeah, they just painted him out to just be goofy and dumb. It pissed, like, they do that all the time. Like, man, that movie killed me, right? And then the only time they would highlight that he has any element of humanity is like the scene where there's a car accident and he puts his arm to protect the little brother. Now, all of a sudden, here we come with the mighty strength. We can be beasts, like we live off instinct. We must protect and guard those that we love. I'm like, y'all kill me with that. Man. He just made him look goofy. I'd have fought everybody after that movie. Like, man, he's great. Like, just tell the people story. He ain't got to lie in it. Like, I feel like they could, well, at this point, they got too much rooted in it. But I feel like some of these other stories could still be great movies if you just tell the honest truth. But I think there's that narrative of people are obsessed with wanting to paint, their collective as we're some of the good ones. Like, so in order to combat all of the atrocities that happen to Black people collectively and the racism we see every day and the nonsense in our politics, you get these great white savior, great white hope movies that come out. And that's symbolism. Symbolism. That's what these movies are. Symbolism. To kind of ease the tension and see, well, yeah, it's not everybody. See, look at these good people. Look at the help. How, they loved Octavia's character so much. They were so grateful that she helped them learn how to cook, that the white lady cooked her a big lavish meal, and it was a thank you meal for her to just eat all by herself. And they made everything, and they made the chicken right. No pank in the middle, So it's like, right? Get out of here. Man, goodness. They did. I'm telling you, they understand they did Randall so wrong on This Is Us. Like, that was my show, but Randall scenes used to piss me off sometimes. I think they might have switched up writing teams in the later seasons because I think they started to become a lot more well-rounded with how they approached it. But yeah, there were some flaws in that one because it's like the way they erased the whole identity of the mother. Just some junkie that didn't overdose, and she was never brought up again until like seasons later. And I think that's how society already kind of treats people who have addiction issues anyway. They love to kind of paint the picture of, oh, it's just, people who are a detriment to society, so their stories don't matter. And I found it interesting because they never really talked about the mom until seasons later. But if you watch that show, they do a deep dive into almost every character's backstory, even like supporting characters that were only on for like one season. But like I said, I think the writing was great, but there were some flaws with how they approach Randall. But, let that be a lesson learned. Let me see here. Thank you, Nerd Large. Calvin, you're preaching tonight. Speaking of Florida, you talked about Bunnell Elementary, but oh my God, is that the assembly? Yep. Okay. You talked about Bunnell Elementary black students being pulled into into an assembly to get lectured about their underperformance, no matter the individual grades. That is some crap. Okay, trying to stop cussing. I saw that story where, this is all in regards to the standardized test and everything that happens. Again, go back and revisit my standardized testing video with my thoughts on standardized testing. They pulled all the black students in the gym, right? I think these are the third and the fourth graders, and give this whole lecture about like, they're not performing the way they should and they got to do better on the test. And then they even start talking about how when you don't do good in school, you end up going to jail and all. Like crazy. Brought all the black kids in there and pretty much told them they're all stupid and you need to do better. You need to do good on this test. Like, I want to be a black child in America. God bless these children. That had me livid. I might do a separate video on that. I got more to say on that. Man, like, you got to be kidding me. Like, let me see if I can find something on that real quick. Like, are you serious? Little kids, right? I really don't like the idea of doing standardized tests on kids anyway, right? Especially third and fourth graders. But to sit here and paint them to be the villains, right? These are kids who are now they already can't learn about their own history. It's against the state law. It's indoctrination, right? All this crazy crap going on, and you over here chasing the kids down. We already know what happens in education and why you sometimes see an achievement gap with some demographics. When we talk about resources, what's allocated, when we talk about even the remedial programs and how a lot of times black children are put in remedial programs at higher rates, not because they are less than or less intelligent, but because of what you call behavioral problems. And really, a lot of times, it's not even behavioral problems. It's just teachers cannot culturally identify or understand how to work with different demographics and different students, and they throw out the hammer. One of the perfect examples, and this is unrelated, but this is going back to my work with kids. I had a student, one of my favorites too. He's grown now, but you know how teenagers like to horse around and goof off and stuff in school and run down the halls. He was in 8th grade and he was goofing off and running around the halls. A teacher had put their hand out to tell him to stop, like, running through the halls, and he kind of pushed the teacher's hand down. I think it was like more reflex. He wasn't even paying attention. And when I tell you they put the hammer out on this kid, he got suspended for 2 months, and he had to go to a hearing in order to come back to the school. And like with most school districts, if you're suspended or something, there's no guarantee that you can turn your work in and stuff. So he couldn't turn his work in. Long story short, by the time his mother and everybody, they got through all of the appeals processes and everything, he had to repeat 8th grade because he had missed too much school. And this was all from a misunderstanding. Like something like that. Again, that idea of just throwing the hammer. Like, I feel like had that been a white student, that would have been lunch detention. That might have been a 2 or 3 day suspension, not 2 months. But again, they always throw the hammer on black students all the time, right? And so, yeah, there's definitely a correlation between the emergence of, seeing a lot of black students being put in remedial programs, seeing the emergence of the gifted program, all of this around the same time when you started having schools integrate, and once you started doing busing and really integrating the schools, since the schools really technically didn't integrate after 54 until they started getting forced to. And so, yeah, like you see some correlations with that. But to take those kids in that gym and lecture them about not performing good enough, like, you have to be kidding me. Things like that make me nervous about being a parent, because I'm gonna be that parent. I might catch a charge or two. My goodness. Mm. Oh, y'all are laughing at my story with the girl. Look, when she went and did you guys call my friends? I mean, she said it with such conviction, like I was like, ooh, oh, never mind. Never mind. With her whole chest. She was not playing no games. She knew she was helping us. Knew she was helping us out. She's gonna show them. Don't you say that. All right. Queen says Sha'Carri's climate success has been great. I love that for her. Love that for her. I love a good comeback story. And I think Simone just won I didn't see today, so I don't know how she did today, but I know she won something a few weeks back. Um Man. Christine said, I wanted to go on The Price is Right when he was on, but now I don't want to go. Drew Carey is lame. I don't remember the last time I watched The Price is Right. I only watched it when I went to my grandma's house. It wasn't one of the shows I really sat through, even like on my own free will. Of all the game shows technically sit through is like Family Feud, Wheel of Fortune. Even though Pat Sajak is, God, I didn't realize he was half crazy. Jeopardy. Those were my three. I always would sit and watch, especially some Jeopardy. That was my show. Let's see. Oh, what's the other game? There's another game I used to watch when I was little. What's the one with no whammies? You know, the thing goes around the screen. They're like, no whammies, no whammies. This is when I was little. This is like the early '90s. I don't know the name of the game, but it's like there's like these little numbers in the box, and then the thing is spinning around, and they don't want to get the whammy. I don't know. Y'all, one of y'all know what I'm talking about. I used to watch that show. Man. Sharon said, OMG, you're a fan of Phyllis Hyman. I knew it was something special about you. See, you should have been at our book club because we just did her biography for the last book club session. Yes, we love Phyllis over here. One of the greatest. Greatly underrated, or just terribly underrated, underappreciated. But I'm glad that there's a resurgence and interest in what it is that she brought to the table. All right. Oh, okay. Sophia said he is banned down there. Good. But he said on his promotional thing that, yeah, we're going right back to the Caribbean. I'm like, here y'all go. It's just, you see how the world moves. Like somebody who has literally scammed millions of dollars, a part of the recipient of $100 million lawsuit, and somehow still, then goes to jail, or excuse me, to prison. Prison's the real jail. Jail is where you go before you get convicted. Then there's the real prison. Boom, right? Been in prison and somehow still has people who are willing to give him millions of dollars to launch a festival. The way things work around here, make it make sense. Somebody said a room for Coco Jones. I like her too. I like her. She's good on Bel Air as well. Let's see. Speaking of education, the state of Texas has taken over HISD here in Houston. Not good. That's the school district, right? I think that is. The scary part with a lot of these school districts being overhauled, like one, I've said this years ago, but there's an effort to privatize all of American education because there's money in it. In the same way they initially tried to do that with the mail services back in the day, like when you had the Joy over there. Like to me, like the main idea was if you can compromise our mailing system enough and privatize it, there's billions to be made. Because think about it, everybody receives mail, right? And so they did everything in their power to mess up the USPS. They did everything in their power to mess that up, right? They started getting rid of all kind of processing machines, just doing all kind of crazy things. Then you saw even the shakiness and what was happening around the 2020 election, and how even they start messing with stuff towards the election. And let's start locking mailboxes where you can't even deliver mail or pick up. Like the way people will privatize things for profit. So they try to do that with mail. They're definitely trying to do that with education. That's the only reason why Betsy DeVos, whatever her last name was put over education. A woman who's never even been in public education, who came from money, and her goal was to privatize everything. And they run on this whole idea of school choice and everything. Yes, do the whole school choice thing and keep pulling out of the public schools to the point where the public schools don't have enough funding, and they eventually have to start shutting down and closing. And it gets to a point where you have cities that just have no schools that are functioning, that are backed by the city, and you let private companies come in and take over to help the children, right? Like you're seeing that happen. And a lot of it is also very political too, depending on, because they tend to only do it in areas where there's a bunch of black students, right? Those are the areas where they want to go and do all that crap to the schools and take over districts and stuff. Like they got a lot of mess going on. They be thinking they slick. Planko. Wait, no, Planko's The Price is Right. Dang, what's the other show I'm talking about? Man, y'all know what I'm talking about. Somebody, maybe when is it Press Your Luck? Press Your Luck. Press Your Luck. It's that one. Yes. That was my show. They used to push that little thing and they're like, no whammies. That one. way back in the day. Y'all remember Supermarket Sweep? You had the grocery cart, you just ran through that store and you had to load that cart up. I don't know why I used to want to go on that show because that's one of the most nursing home game shows. But I guess I was just being greedy as a child. Like that was a show to be on. And then I know, like as a kid, like Nickelodeon. I've said this a million times, but Legends of the Hidden Temple was my show. Like there were three game shows, like three game shows that you watched as a kid. There was Dare or Double Dare. That was more like the family show where the whole family can participate and everybody goes through the obstacle course and the grandma gets hit in the face with a balloon filled with whipped cream or something. Then you had Guts. That was for all the athletic kids that could climb that rock and that mountain and jump and bungee jump, just swim and everything you can think of. That was the athletic kids. Those are all the kids that ended up being the athletes in high school. But then there was Legends of the Hidden Temple. That was my show. But that show was such a setup because that was the show for the nerdy kids that like history and stuff. But they would set them kids up because it's like they would win them first rounds, all the trivia and the questions and answering. And I still remember the team colors of the Blue Barracudas, right? And so they would answer all those questions and everything. But then they had to do that obstacle course in the temple. And then this is when you realize these were the most out of shape kids, right? And it used to stress me out because I think they only had 60 seconds, maybe 60 seconds or 1 minute to get through the full temple. And I think you had to get through it without getting stopped by the temple guards. And you had to get through it and still have your medal medallion thing. And if you could make it to the end, you'd win a trip to Hawaii or win a trip to the Swiss Alps or somewhere. But they would start that obstacle course. And, they always would have the most athletic sibling start first, right? They running and getting through it and they going and they getting all the checkpoints and putting together the maze and the pieces and going and going. And then the tree man would grab them and they would give them the medallion and the medallion would give them a pass to keep going. And they keep going some more, blah, 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 blah. And they climbing the ladders. And I mean, they're making good time. Like, oh, we about to win this. Because for some reason, when you watch these game shows, you want the people to win so bad, especially like when you're a kid watching this. You are like hooked. I used to be like, come on. And so, like, kid is making it, and then next thing you know, the next tree done grabbed him. And now he can't get free because he doesn't have another medallion. So now the slower sibling with the bad knees that are knocked and everything else like that, they got asthma and everything else. They got to finish the obstacle course, but they have to start from the beginning. And I'm like, man, we only got 22 seconds left on the clock. They ain't going to make it. And that sibling would just be running and stop. I'm like, go! And then, they would almost make it to the end with, I don't know. They just got to leap out the temple and they win, but they don't have the energy to leap and then they lose. I would be so mad watching that show. But Legends of the Hidden Temple when I was little was my show. Man. Oh, to go back in time. I wish my mom would have signed me up for that. Me and my cousin Brandon could have won that game. We would have won that. All right. I went way off the grid. I don't even know how we got on Legends of the Hidden Temple, but I need to rechange my energy because I was getting tired of we didn't talk some heavy stuff. I gotta end on a light note. Let's see. Okay, people want to go on Supermarket Sweep. Yep. See, it was dope. It was a time. I don't even know what channel that came on. I don't even remember, but I remember it used to be on. Yeah, game shows used to be fun. He said, "Why did I name three completely different game shows? What would you do? Nick Arcade, Wild and Crazy Kids. I never liked Wild and Crazy Kids. I remember it came on Saturdays. For some reason, I never liked that one. What would you do? I remember the theme song because the theme song to me sounded like Janet Jackson's All Right. Dun, 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 dun. But their show was, how did theirs go? I just remember it sounded just like All Right. Hell, I just played on my phone. I'm sure I won't get flagged for copyright. Let's find out. But yeah, the theme song to What Would You Do always sounded like Janet Jackson, All Right to me. Not the What Would You Do that's on ABC, but like the Nickelodeon one when we were kids or when I was a kid. You do theme song. Let's see. Tell me I'm not crazy. All right. Let's see. To me, this sounds like All Right. Well, not that person singing, but that melody reminds me of friends come and friends and they go. My friends are real, I know. Sounds just like that to me. Anyway, okay, people with asthma, y'all don't have to fight me. I'm just saying what happened on the show. All right. All right. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was okay. I like the old Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when it was still Regis hosting. That was when the checkpoints were what was it 32,5,000, 32,000? I think 32,000 was the last checkpoint. That was the least you could leave with if you lost after 32,000. You would at least go home with that much. That was the good season, the good ones. I always felt bad for people that got the $100 question wrong. All right. Let's see. Actually, they should just bring theme songs back while we're at it. Like theme songs theme songs aren't a thing anymore. I get it now because a lot of writers are like, without having a theme song, it gives shows a bit more leverage. You sometimes can get that extra page of a good script in there when you don't have to take into account 30 seconds to a minute for something. But yeah. Okay, so y'all agree. It does sound like all right to me. That's what dun, 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 dun. I mean, a lot of theme songs back then, mirrored or had some kind of correlation to popular songs that were out at the time anyway. So, or they would actually just go and get the actual celebrity and they would just redo the lyrics. So kind of think of like 702 with Cousin Skeeter. By the way, I've covered all the big topics. We're just chopping it up at this point. So if you were here for any more topics of substance, I'm just here rambling at this point. For those who need to go to sleep. Christine said, I always root for the black contestants to win. I think all of us do that. I'd be over here pressed, especially Wheel of Fortune. You know how many clips I have in my phone of me recording when the person won, like on Wheel of Fortune? There was this one dude, it was so good. He won like $70,000. And like when you don't win anything, they just give you $1,000 to go home with. The other two people only had that $1,000. He had like $60,000. I was like, that was too good. Ari Stafford said privatizing for profits and to gatekeep services. They don't want people educated because it's easier to manipulate them. Exactly. Keep a few generations dumbed down and cement it all in there, then you can get them to go and buy into anything. Exactly. Somebody said they want to go on Double Dare. Double Dare was cool, but for me, Legends of the Hidden Temple was the one I want to go on. Double Dare looks like it was the most fun one to be on. But you had to have the whole family participate because remember, it would be like the whole family had to do it. And the kind of family I had, my mom was not doing nobody's double nothing. Like my mom is not jumping through no tube. You're not about to slime her. You're not about to hit her in the face with cream pie. She ain't doing none of that. Absolutely not. So I knew not to ask to go on nothing like that. I remember Nickelodeon used to have the Big Help. Like they would have that day and they would change all the programming. So on that day, or when it was Big Help time, it would they'd be live from wherever they were doing the events. And it would be like Whoopi Goldberg and like the cast of all that. And they got like trash bags and they're picking up trash and stuff. And I would be like 6 or 7, like, hey, mom, I want to go do the Big Help. Oh, you want to help here? Come clean this up. And she had me go pick up something in the backyard. But I was like, no, I want to like go to where they're at. No, the Big Help, they got the Big Help over here. They told me that you need to just go in the backyard and pick that stuff up that you left out there from yesterday. Like, just no fun. Ain't no Big Help for me. Help that homework. All right. Supermarket. Oh, Tyler said he's never heard of supermarket sweep. I'm aging myself up at this point. Supermarket sweep is like, I think that's early 90s, late 80s, like early 90s. Even when you look at the camera footage of the old shows, that just looks like it came on right after an episode of Roseanne or something. So Adores Leah since 94 says game show networks are packs. Oh, when I was saying what channel Supermarket Sweep came on, I'm talking about when it actually aired. I don't know if was the Game Show Network a channel then? I don't know. I don't remember. That's something I don't remember. I don't remember. We can always Google it. Hey, that's what we have. These smartphones. Let's see how smart we are today. Let's see. Game Show Network. When did that come out? It emerged in 90. You know what? It came out in 94. So maybe it was on by then. Okay. But all right. Somebody said y'all 90s kids had it good. We did have. I feel like every child has it good because you have the innocence of not having to worry about what the adults are doing. That's what makes childhood so great for any generation. I I think that's why so many of us, if you had a good childhood, you reminisce on like those days because you ain't had nothing to worry about. The biggest thing was keeping your room clean, getting your homework done. If you came from a household where things were pretty decent, like man, all right. Oh, they did. Look at y'all. Okay, yeah, they had Double Dare where it was just the kids, and then they had the other one with the family. Okay, oh, look at y'all reminding me. You gotta be reminding me. All right. Um, Shop to Drop. I remember that one. Wait, Supermarket Sweep still comes on. Leslie Jones hosted. According, Ida Ward said, yeah, Leslie Jones does Supermarket Sweep now. I didn't even know this was back, but I don't want to watch that one. I just want the old ones. The groceries too expensive. Well, actually, this might be good because groceries are expensive now. Look, let me sign up because the way I went grocery shopping today was pissed off. Like I'm one of those people that goes to the grocery store and like if you do like Safeway or somewhere and they have like that customer card or you just put in your number. I don't put my number in the machine until the last item has been rung up just so I can watch the discounts calculate just to feel good about spending too much money in there. And yeah, so I always feel like I've won if I do it and I've saved at least $50. But today I only saved 39, so I had an attitude. But I'd be watching that thing. I'm like, I know how to get a deal at the grocery store. I'm getting better because, like I said, I used to be the person that just put stuff in the cart. Now I'll be over here like writing my list down, and like every time I put anything in the cart, I add it with the calculator and just add $1 to it to incorporate taxes. So by the time I'm done and it says I'm paying this much, I already know it's going to be less because I've already overinflated how much everything is. Plus, when you type in your number for whatever discount you get, it just drops. So I'm like, okay, we're doing good, doing good. Adulting is expensive. All right, we need to wrap up and call it a day. Somebody said they like Steve Harvey on Family Feud. I think he's good on Family Feud. He be good on my nerves sometimes, but I think he's a funny host on there. He's really good. He can bring out the humor, but sometimes he will milk a joke for too long. I'm like, all right, we're done laughing. But he makes people feel good. I think the goal is to make people feel great. So that's what he does on that show. Um, all right. Nathan, you know what, Nathan? I don't think we ever did talk about Hawaii. I don't. I don't think we did talk about it. But I will say, all these wealthy developers that are already reaching out, trying to buy plots of land and harping for profit are really effed up. I tell you that. That's a real jacked up part. Um, I think that sucks, especially so many people lost everything. And when you see how many people died too, and to hear the stories where it's like, there's nothing worse than there's already a tragedy. But I think the hardest part is not knowing what happens to family members. I think that's hard because it's already tough to lose people, but when you don't know how they have gone, or it takes weeks to get the final rundown of what happened, like that's the worst way to like lose somebody, especially if you know that they died from like in a place of pain or something. Like that's the absolute worst. Like man, and yeah, Hawaii. I've never been. My dad used to live there when he was a kid at one point. Um, Yeah, that one's tough. And I saw a lot of really selfish people talking about their trips were ruined. I'm like, the way y'all center yourselves in, again, your own gratification at the expense of somebody else. These people have lost everything. And you're worried about, whether or not you're going to get your money back from some trip that you haven't even taken yet. Like the way that people move is, ugh, people are terrible. But I do hope things work out for the residents there because, I mean, that's tough. Mm. It's kind of scary. And you wouldn't even think a place like Hawaii would have something like that, right? You always think of like tropical weather and ocean breeze and there always being humidity and stuff. You would never think like a place like Hawaii would have that. Anytime you think of fire in Hawaii, you just think of maybe Mount Kilauea erupts on the other island and the lava flow does what it does. That's what you would normally think of. But man, it's crazy. But no, these developers that are already out there plotting and trying to set up shop, oh, y'all stay the F back. Leave them people alone. My goodness. Like it's sad. A lot of these cities or places, sometimes when they have these natural disasters, developers come in there and by the time all the work is done, yes, everything is rebuilt, but it's not for the people that were originally there. It's a new population, a new demographic, a whole new place, right? All right. Um, all right, let's call it a night, folks. Do I have anything else? Oh, so remember, like I said, book club tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Zoom link is already on the community tab. So just click that. Like I said, even if you haven't really fully read everything, you're welcome to still join and just be a part of the discussion and then just catch up for the next one. Like I said, we always have a dope time. It's always lit. Like we will get through the chapters and just have some really good conversations. Really dope people, great perspectives. Um, let me see. I think I put it in an announcement. People keep asking about the next So It Happened. I have filmed that thing 4 times and I need it to be right. So we are reattempting again starting tomorrow to do the next So It Happened. And I'm trying to have it out by September 30th. I'm not making that a promise, but that's my goal. And I'm saying since I've already announced it, now I'm really have to push to make sure I get to that date. But there's a lot going on personally, like good things, like different opportunities and stuff. So I've been kind of pulled in a million different directions as of late. And then one of my kids has the honor of being a finalist in this very, very, very big competition. And so I have to go to New York to support them. Actually, not till October. So that's going to be really, really cool because they've won all the rounds leading up to this main one. And this is the national competition. And so, yeah, if they win this, like, it's going to be real lit. It's one of the kids I've worked with since they were 5. And so they're now, they started their freshman week in college this week. So that's kind of cool, too. But anyway, this has been real dope. Thank y'all for hanging. Let me see. Somebody said, "Who said it was a natural disaster, Calvin?" I'm just talking in general when there's some kind of disaster that takes place and everything is destroyed, whether it be a hurricane. Because I think I saw somebody talking about Hurricane Katrina and how New Orleans, how they did that with how things have shifted with what they've rebuilt and what they chose to put money behind. And then again with this fire, technically, I wouldn't consider a fire natural disaster because half the time it's man-made. Somebody left a cigarette or something, but sometimes it's a lightning strike, so who knows? But either way, Mother Nature did its Mother Nature thing. So yeah. But okay. Yeah, that's it. We've been on here for 3 hours, and I said I wasn't gonna be on here for 3 hours, and here we are. Anyway, I am out. See you guys. Probably some point later in this week. I have some other content to put out. Anyway, good night.